Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Town of Los Gatos Joint Town Council Parking Authority meeting for August 19th, 2013, 7 p.m. First of all, let me ask you to please silence or place your cell phones on vibrate. And secondly, if you intend to speak to us this evening on any agenda item or as part of verbal communications, please fill out one of these cards, which are behind each of the pews there, and hand the card to our staff person over here to my left. Again, fill out one of these cards and hand it to staff. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call?
Thank you and good evening. Councilmember Joe Przynski.
Here.
Councilmember Marcia Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Diane McNutt.
Here.
Vice Mayor Steve Leonardis.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Barbara Spector.
Here. At this point on our agenda, we will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. And as you may be aware, every meeting I call up a stellar student to help me with the salute to the flag. And today that stellar student is Taylor Barron. Taylor, if you'll join me up here. Well, this is pretty good. Normally people clap after I tell you about her. She's ahead of the game. Taylor is a fifth grader at Louise Van Meter. Her favorite subjects are science and art. She volunteers to help special education children at her school. As a Girl Scout, she has volunteered for community service, such as sending Christmas cards to our troops. She participates in swimming and tennis. She enjoys arts and crafts, such as origami, drawing, and the new art of duct tape. Is that right? Okay. Her primary interest is piano. She has been playing piano for more than 5 years. How old are you?
10.
10, okay. And she's been playing piano for more than 5 years. I met Taylor recently, actually. I did not know when I met her that she was a Los Gatos student. I met her because she was playing the piano at an event that I was attending, and I went over to listen to her because she was playing so beautifully. And it was at that point that I found out through her parents and through her that she is a Los Gatos student. And so she is here with us this evening, and as soon as I get this on, I'm going to ask you to stand and join us in the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Round of applause, another one. One more time. We will now be having a presentation, and I will ask the board members from the Friends of the Library to join me in front here at the table. Okay, I'm going to have you all come up here. If you have a spokesperson, I'm going to turn the mic over to the spokesperson and ask you first of all to introduce everybody up here. All right, she is the spokesperson.
I guess. First of all, this is the biggest check I've ever seen.
And we, the Friends of the Los Gatos Library, are extremely proud to present our check to the town of Los Gatos. And I would like to introduce the members that are here with me this evening. I have our esteemed past president, who really did most of the work, I think. We have Rita Baum. She's also a past president. And Georgina Van Horn and Elise Parsons.
And you are
Oh, me. I'm Marlene Rodman.
the new president.
The new president
And your immediate past president
is Carol. Yes.
Hamilton.
Carol Hamilton. Did I not say Carol?
No, you didn't.
See, I've known you too long, Carol. She's like part of me.
I know, that's right.
Okay.
No need to introduce her, okay? So if you can't see it wherever you are, this is a check for $1,800,000. And on behalf of the council, Barbara Spector as mayor of this town, and the entire community, we want to express our appreciation to the Friends of the Library, and not only the amount of money that they raised, but the work and time that went into it in collecting it. We truly appreciate it, and I know everybody who has been in the library, and I believe it's been every single one of you who is out there, also appreciate it. So on behalf of our town, let's give them a round of applause. Oh, you want a shot? Oh, wait a minute. This is photo op time. Hold on.
Because we're still looking for money.
You can't take the check.
You want that check?
To the Friends of the Library, thank you so much, and thank you again. All right, getting on to less exciting things. Ms. Prop, our closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and the public. The council met in closed session this evening before tonight's regularly scheduled meeting. The agenda they met on was posted and duly noticed. They took no action, and there's nothing to report out at this time.
Thank you. We now have council matters. Does anybody want to speak to us on council matters? Mr. Przinski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Cities Association Board met in special session on Thursday to determine what the rules and regulations of the new emergency council will be for the county. And as a result of that, we will be forwarding to the town those requirements for individuals who'd like to apply for the positions that would be available for us. And we will explain further when those notices come to the town.
Thank you. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of the town of Los Gatos, I attended a policy advisory committee of the VTA, and of interest to members of the council and members of the public may be that VTA is considering revising the manner in which it assesses traffic impact analysis for EIR reports. So we may be seeing a revision about how VTA might comment on future EIRs for traffic impacts. I also attended a meeting of the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee, and that committee received presentations and provided feedback regarding 2 proposed projects.
Thank you. Anyone else? Since the last council meeting, I also attended the CDAC meeting. We had a general plan committee meeting where we, I believe, completed our work on the overlay zone, which will be going forward to the Planning Commission. And the North 40 Advisory Committee also had a meeting where we continued our discussion of the proposed draft specific plan. Manager matters.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, a few items for you this evening. First, with the start of school for most districts in Los Gatos this week, it's a good time to remind everybody about traffic safety and street safety, and in particular, our police department, along with all other law enforcement agencies in Santa Clara County, are again doing the Avoid the 13 program through Labor Day weekend, which is one of our periodic crackdowns on driving under the influence to encourage safe driving at the start of school and throughout the year. It's also an appropriate day, and we'll start seeing 2 new officers out on the streets of Los Gatos. Just this morning, we swore in Matt Kirby and Harold Hoyt as our 2 newest officers, filling 2 previous vacancies, and we received them as experienced officers, having served 10 and 5 years previously in other jurisdictions. Just an announcement for the community that we have scheduled our annual Los Gatos Montessorino community-wide garage sale for October 5th, and the deadline for signing up is September 8th. So September 8th is coming up as the deadline for the garage sale. And as we've started doing at periodic meetings this year, I did want to inform the council that on the consent calendar that you will be hearing next, we have 4 desk items before you tonight. For item 4, which is the general plan annual progress report, a desk item explaining why a project was included in that report. We also have a desk item requesting that item 5, the resolution modifying the North 40 Advisory Committee, be dropped this evening, and it will be rescheduled for a separate meeting in September with some additional changes. If there is anybody present to speak on item 5, since it's recommended for being dropped, they could either speak under verbal communications or let us know, and we'll invite them back when the matter is rescheduled. Item 6 has another desk item, and that's regarding our below market price housing program scoring criteria. And last, we provided a desk item on the award of contract for the Highway 9 University Avenue intersection improvement project. That concludes staff report, except for tonight's Did You Know?
Before you do that,
Okay.
though you're anxious to go, does anybody on the council have questions of Mr. Manager? Okay, you were absolutely right. I'm going to call up Henry Bankhead. I'm going to call up Henry Bankhead. And he's going to be talking to us about technology services at the library, which is very fitting given the fact that we just had that lovely check presented to us. Mr. Bankhead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. I'm Henry Bankhead, Town Librarian at the Los Gatos Library. And did you know that thanks to the fundraising of the Friends of the Los Gatos Library, we have a host of technology resources in our new library? There's more than triple the amount of public access computers for public use, reflected in the fact that computer use has gone up more than 1,000%. We have a very friendly laptop environment with power outlets in all tables, a laptop bar, and a high bandwidth wireless network. Our versatile technology lab, with an integrated projector and screen and classroom seating, is perfect for technology classes and general use. And the children's area has additional technology features, including early literacy computers, and another projector and screen combination that enables our digital story times. All this was made possible through the fundraising efforts of the Friends of the Los Gatos Library, and we thank you. For more information on the library and the Friends of the Library, please visit our websites or give us a call.
Thank you. Thank you again. We are now at the consent calendar portion of our agenda. Consent calendar items will be acted upon in a single motion. unless a matter is pulled from the consent calendar by either a member of the council or a member of the audience. Starting with the council, does any council member wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. So question, do we need to pull item 5 in order to postpone it?
Mr. Manager?
If you act on the consent calendar, given the desk item that recommends dropping item 5, you would be following staff recommendation in the desk
Okay,
item.
in that case, I would like just to pull item 6 for discussion on the desk item.
All right, so we have pulling of agenda item 6. Anyone else up here want to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing no one, is there anyone from the community, from the audience, that wishes to pull an item from our consent calendar? This is your opportunity to do so. Noting that no one is coming forward, may I have a motion on the remainder of the consent calendar? Mr. Przezinski.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda, less item 5 that's been pulled by staff, and item 6 that's been pulled for discussion.
A question,
Yes.
I believe that you wanted to leave 5 on the consent calendar as an item that is being, Mr. Larson?
It can be pulled and dropped separately or left in and dropped as part of the consent.
Then we'll just leave it in and drop it, but I want to pull 6.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, continuing item 5 and pulling item 6. May we have a second?
Second.
Ms. McNutt seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We will hear item 6. We will hear item 6 now, and I'm going to look to Ms. McNutt and ask her basis for pulling it, and then I gather, Mr. Brzezinski, did you want to speak to that also? All right, very good. Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a resolution revising the below market price housing program guideline scoring criteria. And I did have a question about one of them, which staff answered in a desk item, but I'm still not sure that's as clear as I think it needs to be going forward. So the one that's in question for me is the idea of first responders. And as it says in the desk item, the suggested new wording is emergency first responders, e.g. police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical response professionals, which I understand the committee and staff to mean people who work ambulances and not just doctors and nurses. So the question for the rest of council is, if you were looking at this and not part of the conversation in the committee or tonight, would that be clear to you when you're trying to evaluate people as potential for the BMP program and they come in and they're a doc or a nurse with low incomes? Could happen, I guess. Is that going to be clear enough?
And Mr. Larson, before we go to the other folks who want to up here, who want to speak to this, would you just please read to me, for me aloud, what the staff's current wording is?
Yes, I will ask Ms. Bailey to read the language.
Emergency and medical persons who are responsible for going immediately to the scene of an accident or incident to provide assistance. Emergency first responders, example, police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical response professionals of agencies serving the town and who have been employed for at least 1 year at the time of the application.
Thank you. Mr. Przezinski, I understand you want to speak to this also?
Yes, I had difficulty with this language too, and I think that in our attempt to delineate who we're trying to include in this particular field, I think we've included too much. When I read this, emergency and medical persons who are responsible for going immediately to the scene of an accident or incident to provide assistance, I think that could theoretically be extended to almost anyone who shows up first on scene. particularly if they've got some kind of medical background. And I did a little bit of a search to find out what the technical term is, and my understanding is the technical term for the individuals we're trying to pull into this field is certified first responders. Certified first responders is the accepted category for police, fire, and emergency service workers, such as ambulance personnel, that is used nationwide and is a classification that is very specific, so that a person who has some training, let's say in CPR, comes to a scene of an accident, attempts to give assistance, they may be the first responder to that accident scene, but they're not a technical certified first responder. And I think that's what we should try to be more specific on, because the explanation or the italicized language that we're using is actually is more extensive than I believe we're attempting to achieve. So that would be my recommendation to consider.
And I should say we will have the people in the audience will have the opportunity to address us on this issue. Ms. Jensen.
I agree that I think the language regarding the first responders is very ambiguous. It's also, I think, in conflict with Section E of the existing criteria, which specifically excludes police officers. So when I read this, it specifically includes police officers. So I thought that it presented a contradiction that I was concerned about, and I didn't understand it. And I share the concerns that have been raised about the ambiguity of the language. I also have a concern about general ambiguity because the language we've been presented with, and it may reflect what's in the rest of the ordinance, I'm not sure. But, for example, it says, it gives a description of the person who's qualified, then it says, and who has been employed for at least 1 year. And I read that and I think you could be employed as anything. I'm sure the intent is that you are employed as such in the occupation that we are giving you credit for, but that's not what it says. So if I become a first responder and I've been employed as a waiter, I think I could qualify under the language. I'd also be interested for an explanation from staff or from a member of the General Planning Committee, because I couldn't really tell from reading the minutes. Including private school teachers is problematic for me because this is a public benefit that we are providing to generally public employees. And while the schools that I think the General Plan Committee was trying to include, St. Mary's and Hillbrook, are located in Los Gatos, they may not necessarily serve Los Gatos residents. They serve residents from all over the place, and that's a good thing, but it's not the same as having a public school where we have a public employee that we're providing a public benefit to. So I'm troubled by including a private employee, and I just wonder what the General Plan Committee's thinking was on that.
All right, before I go to Mr. Przinski, as a member of that General Plan Committee, two things. First of all, I was going to pull this matter from the consent calendar because subparagraph H, emergency first responders, when I read that in the staff report, it was not consistent with my memory of the General Plan Committee having made that decision. I pulled and reread the General Plan Committee minutes. When they got to that discussion, they were not really clear, but I don't think they came to the conclusion that is reflected in our staff report or even in our desk item. With regard to the school, teachers, employees, that was a specific discussion in which the decision was made, or recommendation was made by the General Plan Committee to include not only those those individuals employed by public schools, but those individuals employed by private schools. Mr. Przinski.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. To answer the question, comparing H to E, and E states regular full-time and regular part-time town employees as defined by the town's personnel rules, but excluding Los Gatos, Montesino police officers, and then the employment time frame. The reason why that's stated in E, and then there's the language in H that includes police officers, is that if the language in E to allow town employees to be given a point value acknowledged in the count towards whatever total they're going to achieve to be eligible for below market housing. If we were to include one of the categories of people who are town employees, are police officers, and then we were looking to emergency first responders or certified first responders as another category that would receive another point value, that means the police officers would receive double count. So that's why that was it wasn't an attempt to exclude Los Gatos PD, but it was an attempt to make sure that there wasn't a double count for a police officer in this language. And then in terms of the private school issue, that was definitely a recommendation made by the General Plan Committee, and the intention was that both schools, public and private, serve Los Gatos citizens, and it may not be 100% in the private school that are Los Gatos citizens, but they are Los Gatos citizens, and we're acknowledging the fact that the teachers in our school system are beneficial to our community, and that's why we included the private schools as well.
All right, before we go on to motions and further discussion, this is a public hearing, and this is Agenda Item 6, adopt a resolution revising the below market price BMP housing program guidelines scoring criteria. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address us on this item? Noting for the record that there is no one coming forward, I will turn back to the council for questions, discussion, motion. Ms. Jensen.
I would like to make a motion to continue item number 6 so that staff can present us with, I don't want to say better necessarily, but certainly more clear language on what the intent is so that we can consider it rather than trying to amend it at the meeting tonight. And I don't know what date to suggest, but I would suggest that we continue it and hear it at another date.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. McNutt.
Sure. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. I don't hear any discussion. I will just say that I will be supporting the motion, and I'm not going to suggest this go back to the General Plan Committee, but I actually did have enough concern about this proviso that was going to be my suggestion, but I'm going to support the motion so that it just goes back to staff. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now on verbal communications, where any member of the public who has can speak to us on any item not on our agenda. Not on our agenda. You will have 3 minutes to speak. I have not received any cards as of yet. All right. Does anybody wish to address us under verbal communications? Seeing no one coming forward, we will then move on to public hearings. Our first public hearing is conditional use permit application U13014, project location 16212 Los Gatos Boulevard, property owner 16212 Los Gatos Boulevard LLC, applicant Joseph Prang and Christine Tran. This is to consider a request of approval on a conditional use permit for a retail wine, beer, and distilled spirit shop with tastings on property zoned CHAPN 523-06010. The staff report will be made by Marnie Mosley, Associate Planner.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. The subject site is located at the northeast corner of Los Gatos Boulevard and Shannon Road. The town has reviewed several rezoning and residential subdivision proposals for the site, and it remains the intent of the current property owner to continue to pursue a residential development on the property. As a result, the proposed application may be a temporary use of the property, but the proposed CUP would remain in effect until a rezoning or a change in use were approved. The applicant is requesting the approval to operate a retail wine, beer, and distilled spirits shop with scheduled tastings. The applicant, Artisan Wine Depot, has an existing location in Mountain View and is looking to open a Los Gatos location. The applicant is proposing operating hours from 10 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. Thursday through Saturday, and noon to 7 p.m. on Sunday. The tasting events will be for 2 to 3 hours between 1 p.m. and 8 p.m., depending on the day, within the allotted operating hours specified in the CUP. The tastings will only be offered during the scheduled times and only for the showcased beverages. The Planning Commission considered the application on July 24th of 2013 and recommended approval of the proposed application with several changes to the conditions of approval, which are contained in your staff report. Several questions and additional modifications were suggested for clarification after the routing of the staff report, and they are contained in the desk item that you have received this evening. Staff is here if you have any questions. This completes our report.
All right, first look to the council for questions of staff. Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several. May I do them all at once? Thank you. So some of these questions might be more questions for the applicant, but I will start with you. And just as an introductory statement, this is not about this specific business. This is about the land use decision that we are making for this particular parcel. So we always have to be, and I do appreciate the fact that the Planning Commission emphasized that when they were doing their discussion of it, that it's always interesting to hear what the business plan is of the current applicant, but we have to be worried about the person who takes over the business next, and always assume that that's going to happen the day after we give the approval, possibly. So out of curiosity, and I did ask this question, and it was addressed in the desk item. This is called a wine, beer, and distilled spirits store, but to me it's a liquor store. So, and the description, the explanation in the desk item was a liquor store would want longer hours. I mean, isn't that an assumption? My concern is, should we be making up titles of business categories for CUPs just to fit the marketing language of a company, or should we have more consistency?
You are correct in that the proposed use could be construed to be operate similarly to a liquor store. Staff attempts to, just like we do with restaurants for fine dining versus fast food versus other categories, we do define that use and try to encapsulate the intent of the approval and the request within that use as best as we can. So that's what you see before you as far as the proposed use.
Okay. That's probably something that council can talk about. And then my questions and concerns on the pouring, some of them were addressed in the desk item on some of the suggested language, but some not. So what they're asking for is up to 3 hours a day of tastings in 2 different locations on the site. So that's 90 to 93 hours a month. They're willing to limit it to 15 outdoor tastings with no limit on indoor tastings. Is that correct?
That issue did not specifically come up at the Planning Commission when they talked about limiting the number of tastings. It was later clarified that they were only interested in limiting the number of outdoor tastings and the impact of that potentially to the adjacent neighbors.
Okay, and then on the, again, the proposed language in the desk item, it's limited to each patron has no more than 10 ounces of beer and or wine and 2 ounces of distilled spirits. Is that clear enough? And
and strict enough that it could not be interpreted as 10 ounces of beer and 10 ounces of wine and 2 ounces of distilled spirits all at one time. Maybe that's more a question for the attorney, I don't know, but.
That was staff's intent. If you have any further modifications that you wish for clarification, staff is amenable.
Okay, and then obviously we're going to be discussing these things as we go along. And then the other one was a list of provided beverages shall be established prior to the event. I'm not sure what that means.
There was some concern prior to the meeting that it wasn't clear that it's clear within the proposed business plan that they intend to have a schedule of beverages that defines what is limited in the tasting, but it wasn't clearly reflected in the conditions. So that was the intent of staff to include that there is to be a defined set of beverages per the business description from the applicant.
Okay, I think that's going to be some additional language because I don't see how we'd ever enforce that. So a list of provided shall be established. So an hour before they open, they write down a list. I mean, so we'll have to talk about that more, but I don't think that's enforceable as it's currently written. And that concludes all of my harassing questions right now.
Actually, very interesting. Anybody else? I have one question, and I think I know the answer, but I'll throw it out there anyway. The Planning Commission raised an issue with regard to not wanting amplified music out of doors, something like that. And the town staff at that meeting didn't really address it, at least not verbally. And I see here on the desk item, you have meet with the requirements of the town's noise ordinance. So the question I have for you, which is a question I have a lot, is I'm a neighbor, I hear the noise, and then what do? I call the police, and then how are the police going to use the noise ordinance to address my concerns?
The noise ordinance is written to be enforced by the police department, but the staff has included a condition regarding noticing of the neighbors, which would include a local phone number for those concerned with the impact of noise, if there was the potential for that, to contact somebody immediately associated with the business in order to address that potentially, rather than calling the police.
And then following up on Ms. McNutt, was her math correct that we could possibly be looking at 93 wine tastings, I think it was a month? Or I should say tastings.
I haven't done the math. I would have to do the math to confirm that. The strict number of tastings can be regulated by the council if it were so chosen. It just has not been brought to direction to staff to do so.
And somewhere in the paperwork that we have, maybe on the desk item, is there a recommendation or input from staff to the council relating to the number of tastings one can have? For example, can I go in to the inside of the establishment and then to the outside of the establishment and have X number of pours of wine, and then X number of pours of beer plus X number of pours of hard spirits? Is there anything that addresses that issue?
I believe the revised condition provided in your desk item talks about each patron shall be limited to no more than 10 ounces, no more than that specific allotment, and that would be per tasting event, which would be per day.
Is per tasting event per day?
If I might add, and also responding to Councilwoman McNutt, the current language reads, each patron shall be limited to no more than 10 ounces of beer and or wine, or 2 ounces of distilled spirits. in response to the question the mayor raised, that could be per day or per tasting, as the council might choose. And then the clarification for Councilwoman McNutt would be to strike the "and" after beer. And so it's the 10 ounces is inclusive of beer or wine, or 2 ounces of distilled spirits. And I think certainly with the commentary tonight and staff's intention in the drafting, we didn't see it that you got all of it. It was a choice.
Further questions? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Spector. Looking at the diagram, I didn't see any seating other than the seating for the wine education area. Is there going to be any seating in the tasting area or any outdoor seating?
I apologize. I was making a note. Can you repeat your question?
Most certainly. Is there, looking at the diagram of the wine tasting education area, there appears to be seats in a theater type arrangement. And moving into the wine tasting room, I did not see any seating in that room. And I didn't see any kind of outdoor seating. So I'm assuming that it's going to be standing room only during tasting, no sit down or...
The applicant can speak a little bit more to it. Is staff's understanding that they may have several temporary stools out there during a tasting event in order to provide for an atmosphere of education. The seats that are shown in the tasting education area are also temporary, non-fixed, and will just be there during specified tasting events.
Okay, but just to clarify, well, perhaps the applicant can clarify better, but the area that says tasting currently doesn't have any seats, the indoor tasting area, so I assume that would be the case moving forward with this.
I'm not sure I understand your question because what I'm looking at does show seats on the indoor section. Are you talking about the outdoor patio area?
I was just looking at the schematic. Perhaps, all I see is the wine education area has seating, but the indoor tasting room didn't appear to have any seating.
We are referencing page 8 of the applicant's submittal, and that is...
So the part that says tasting area...
Right, that's the outdoor.
That's the outdoor part. Okay, so there's no seating in that area currently delineated.
Correct. There's nothing shown. They may temporarily, during the limited outdoor tasting events, provide several stools.
Okay, thank you.
But nothing to remain.
Other questions? Ms. Jensen.
Completely different direction. One of the proposed conditions has to do with how much parking that the proposed wine shop needs to provide. Right now, I know that the owner of the property is providing parking for Yoga Source, and they're designated parking spots for Yoga Source. If the council so directed or so wished, could it include a condition that the parking for Yoga Source be maintained, or is that beyond the scope of our power?
That would be beyond the scope of the application for this particular CUP. What you can do is, since this use, if approved, is required to maintain the number of parking spaces associated with its own use, you could certainly add comments or while not a project-specific condition, but certainly show the intent that council would support or is supportive of using any excess parking for adjacent businesses.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, we will now open up the public testimony portion of this hearing. The applicant will speak first. If there is more than one individual representing the applicant, the team or duo will have a total of 10 minutes. So if you'll please come forward, give us your name, and you will have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. My name is Joe Prang. This is my business partner, Christine Tran. Myself and my family have lived for the last 10 years on Sund Avenue in Los Gatos. My family and Christine's family have lived in San Jose, Los Gatos, or Saratoga for over 25 years, so we are from the local area. Our CUP, as noted, is for a high-end wine, beer, and spirits retail shop with tasting. If it is approved, it will be considered as Artisan Wine Depot Los Gatos. It is a similar model to an existing highly successful business in Mountain View that is also referred to as Artisan Wine Depot. In Mountain View, we have both a retail shop and a warehouse distribution center. The business there has been in business for about 5 years. It's been high growth, almost 100% growth each year, even in the downturn. It's very successful, and to that point, Christine is the business person of the year for Mountain View. We have thousands of products in our stable, so when we talk about these wine, beer, and spirits, there's products from all over the globe. Every country you can probably think of that's either a wine-producing or a beer-producing region, for example. There's many formats, small, large, magnums, those types of things. There's older vintages, and there's consignment wines. So we have a lot of different kinds of products. It's a professional operation. We provide professional education. In our tastings, we provide tasting notes. We do provide, as was discussed here, a preset list of what is going to be in the tasting in minutia detail, the varietals, the vintages, tasting notes, et cetera, scores. We provide wine maps, glassware, decanters, and accessories in the shop also. We reach customers in a lot of different ways. We're a retail shop. We take orders by phone, online. We have a mobile setup for corporate events, and we do wholesale to restaurants also. We have tastings with winemakers from around the world. It's very professionally run, and in our current operation, and there was a photograph in the CUP, we have what we call the Winemaker Wall of Fame. So when they come, they present, we taste the wines, we take photos of them, they sign the Wall of Fame, and so on. We participate in many ways with local communities, like multiple wine and art festivals up and down the peninsula, Boogie on the Bayou. We participated at the Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce annual dinner. We are going to participate in the wine walk, et cetera. We're asking you in this application to let us bring that business in an even better form to Los Gatos. We have feedback from many current customers that there's a strong need for this type of business. I hope you saw the referral letters, and I hope you saw the support we had at the Planning Commission meeting. You'll hear more tonight, I think. There are great restaurants, wine bars, supermarkets in Los Gatos, but there is not a high-end artisan wine craft beer shop. The demographics of Los Gatos and the surrounding area is very similar to the one we have in Mountain View, and our shop borders Los Altos and Palo Alto, or right near San Antonio. So our primary customer base there is residents from areas like Los Altos, Palo Alto, Atherton, et cetera. Lots of professionals, many ethnic backgrounds, a lot of people who are very wine and travel knowledgeable. They know about the regions all over the world. We thought long and hard about how to come into the local market and integrate ourselves into the local area. We've been working since the beginning of the year in a number of ways. One way is this program. It's called Round the World Wine and Food Tour. I hope you've heard about it. We've been doing it in conjunction with Purple Onion Cafe over on Winchester Boulevard. Hundreds of Los Gatos residents have attended. We do a special pairing from different places around the country. We've done 7 major regions in conjunction with them. We pair their food with our wines. We've also started a series with Forbes Mill of vintage Bordeaux tastings. We did a 7-course meal and vintage Bordeaux tasting with them. It sold out in 1 hour, which shows you the interest. Our location is a good fit both ways. We chose outside the downtown area to avoid congestion, dedicated parking issues, et cetera. There is no build-out or construction or anything like that in this use permit that we've applied for, so the residents won't have big trucks and doing all the type of things. In fact, we believe it will improve the landscape and maintain the character of the place with a more wine shop orientation, like wine barrels and those sorts of things. Obviously, the building's been vacant for a while, tagging, smoking, all kinds of things going on around it. We think it's better to be inhabited with our thing. Our daily operating mode fits the local area. We're not a high customer volume business. We have a high average sell price because our products are high-end, but we don't have a high volume of customers like other businesses. We are not open any day till 10 a.m., so we don't conflict with the kids going to school in the morning. Our deliveries are typically between 10 and 2 because both us, facility, and our suppliers do not want to compete with traffic on the highways, so they tend to not want to do it. They can't do it before 10, obviously. They do not want to do it after 2 because they don't want to get caught in traffic. By operating out of our Mountain View, I mentioned we had 2 facilities, the distribution center, we have kind of a hub and spoke setup. So, quote, the big trucks can go to our distribution center, drop there, and then smaller things can be distributed between our 2 storefronts. When school ends is typically our lull time. When the kids get out of school, we don't have much customer volume then because everybody's a working professional. We usually don't see them till after 4 or 5 because of that. High majority of our customers shop and they pick up orders on nights and on weekends. That's where we have more of the customer traffic. We are never open, as you heard in the proposal, beyond 8 p.m., so we believe we will not have the late night issues perhaps associated with bars, wine bars, and so on. So in summary, what we'd like to do is bring a proven business to the local area. I know there's a lot of great new businesses that get proposed, but oftentimes there's a lot of turnover because the business isn't proven. We feel the model's proven, it's a similar setup, we can make it successful, and we'd like to fill a gap in the city's retail offering. We believe we have a unique set of product and services, again, demonstrated by the feedback from the customers, and we think we can operate the business in a fit with the local area, the traffic patterns, the schools, and so on. And we're trying to do this in a partnering style with the local community organizations. And saving 3 minutes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now look to the council for questions. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Pang. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about your operation in Mountain View, especially with regard to how you operate the tastings, how often they occur. Are they outside? Are they inside? Have you had any issues with police with respect to the tastings? Just give us an idea of how that works.
Sure. Let me say a few things, and then my partner, Christine, will say. First of all, Ms. Jensen, the facility there is not set up in any way, shape, or form for an outdoor tasting area, so the tastings there happen to be indoor. If you just saw the way it's laid out, it's not conducive to it, okay? Tastings typically range from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're 4 to 7 p.m. or so in that time period. Again, consistent with what I said, we're trying to catch the people after work. And then there's some tastings on Saturday or Sunday, usually in the 2 to 5, 3 to 6, something in that kind of time frame. All of the tastings have, first of all, we charge for the tastings, so you have to sign up for them. You can sign up online, by phone, in person. There is, I said, a fixed lineup of every tasting. People want to know what they're obviously going to come in and taste. They know who it's from, what kind of wines, what kind of varietals, that sort of thing. So that gives you a little bit of backdrop on that. Christine can comment also about, the police issues and all that sort of thing, too, and anything else.
So you've asked some great questions. So we've been open for almost 5 years, and we've had our tastings over in Mountain View. Our tastings have been, because of the size and location, have been indoors. And as Joe had mentioned, that usually we send out a list of invite of what the theme of the tasting, let's say if we were to have a special winemaker in town. And so people RSVP, and what we try to do is limit the number of attendees just so that it's not too congested. And the tastings is usually depending on the amount of the lineup, but it's usually no more than an ounce. And it's more of an educational purpose. And many of the times we actually have maps and we have tasting sheets to talk about the wines, and the winemaker would talk about what, which, where it's from, how it's grown, and basically we'll have a sheet so that if they enjoy what they're tasting, then they're able to purchase the wines. And in the 5 years that we've been open, we've had no incidents, and no police has came on the property or anything of that nature. Yeah.
May I also comment that we are both certified sommeliers. I forgot to mention that it is in the CUP, so we both had education and certification as certified sommeliers. And the people who do the tastings along with us, either they are the winemaker or distributor for the product, and some of those are certified sommeliers, as I think you'll hear later.
Thank you.
And one of the questions that was addressed
I'm sorry,
by
you're responding to Ms. Jensen's question?
Miss, yes, I think it was earlier, Diane. I think it's Diane.
Let's, at this point, we're going to do question and answer.
Okay.
So let's see if anybody else from the council has questions. And look, Ms. McNutt has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll repeat what I already said earlier. You know, we walk a fine line on these between wanting to welcome a business that clearly is successful in another community, clearly has a lot of community support, and trying to accommodate your needs so that you can replicate that success in our community with what horrible thing could happen if you were to sell the business, or if the spot would convert over to someone else, because the CUP, even though I understand you have limited lease, the CUP runs with land for eternity until something happens. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, and we do a lot of speculation, like what's the most evil thing that someone can do within the CUP that we have set up here. So would you ever envision that you would have tastings both inside and outside at the same time?
It would be the same tasting if it's inside or outside, so it'd be the same theme. And earlier, you also asked a question which I wanted to address is, are they going to have liquor, beer, and wine? Usually our tasting, our theme, so if it's wine alone. And usually if we're going to have a craft, and it's all artisanal craft like beer, it would be beer only. So we usually don't interchange them, just to answer your question. But
so let me ask the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were, and I'm going to do these in little chunks here.
Okay.
So if we were to say in the conditions that only there could only be, I'm not sure how you would phrase this, but only beer, wine, or distilled spirits, only one type at a tasting would be allowed, however they work that out. That would work for you, and it would help us for a future one that they wouldn't be mixing them all up together. Is that correct?
Well, 90% of the time, that is correct. That's the nature we can show you our tasting theme for this past year. Yes, but there are certain portfolios where they've consolidated, where they're starting to branch out and they're making something else. So they might have one or two, and I just didn't want it to limit it to just that. Like, for example, let's say I'll take one of La Spinetta. They have been making this new, and it's not technically a spirit, but it's used to mix with spirits, and the tasting of that's like under 17% alcohol, and I wouldn't want to limit it that they can't taste that one item because the way it's specified. Like
okay, so there's one way of limiting that you are not going to be able to agree with. So could we say that we're limiting it to one tasting at a time, so that there would not be separate tastings going on indoors and outdoors at the same time?
I'm sorry, I just want to understand. So separate tastings meaning separate theme tasting?
They're tasting gin on the patio, and they're tasting bourbon inside.
Oh, got it. Yes. So for the most part, again, that doesn't occur, but there's a lot of times which I don't know if it was mentioned in our proposal, but we have key corporate accounts such as Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Many of the times we're on site because we work with the kitchen, but a lot of times they want to leave the campus and they want to do a private, like a team building, 5 or 10. So it might be so that it's in that room that they're doing that tasting, and that's their own wine. And outside might be a regularly scheduled tasting. So there might be an occurrence where that might happen, but it's not like gin and then outside is bourbon or something like that.
But it could be. I mean,
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? So do you see we have to balance here between the way that you operate your business and the restrictions we're setting up for the future. So I'm trying to find some ways to narrow this that work for you.
I understand.
We're striking out so far. Did you, Mr. Prane, did you want to
May I speak to her for just, if we just said that, public tastings at
Yeah.
the same time?
Yeah, if we're fine with saying not multiple public tastings at the same time. If we can do that, that's.
Okay, and then you've already offered to limit the outdoor tastings to 15 per month. You've got, the way it's currently written, it's up to 3 hours a day for tastings. So again, if it's 30 days in the month, that's 90 hours a month, potentially in 2 different locations. Is there any limit on the number of hours, less than that would work for you?
Well, we find that if it's less hours, it would be too restrictive because a lot of our clients are professional business people, and a lot of them actually we give them that window so it's a casual, so they don't have to show up. Because if they have a meeting, they can't show up right at 5. If they come later, they can taste through casually. And many of our clients, they can testify that when they taste, many of them don't even go through the entire lineup because they need to be at another location. So they taste, and a lot of times people, we offer an array, but some people only drink white or only drink red. So that usually we offer maybe a lineup of 8 to 10, but people sometimes only taste like 3 or 4 depending on what they like. So
that's it for me right now.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Ms. Jensen.
Let me try something with you, Ms. Tran. You indicated, or I think Mr. Prang indicated, that your tastings are RSVP by invitation.
Right.
Would you be comfortable with some kind of condition which indicated that it was a particular manufacturer or winemaker or whatever it was, and it was by invitation and limited to X number of people? Would that work for you?
It would, depending on the amount of people. I don't think we're opposed to it. But then again, like I said, some of our tastings will have certain winemakers. They have a lot of notoriety. So sometimes that's why we also have the 3 hours, because we ourselves try to limit so that we don't want to make the customer uncomfortable. So we limit, sometimes we have to divide the hours, like from 1 to 2, there can only be so many people can fit in the room. So we've done that ourselves, self-regulate. So it's not that we're opposed to it, but it just depends on the amount, yes.
Ms. Jensen?
One follow-up on that and another question. Speaking of self-regulation, is it your intent, if you got the permit, to continue the parking allocation for Yoga Source?
Yes.
Even though we can't make you do it, is it your intent to continue doing it?
Yes, like maintain it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Then my other question is with respect to the mailing notice to the neighbors.
Right.
The proposed condition is to mail notice 10 days in advance. And I imagine that if you're doing a list for a tasting on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you're going to be constantly mailing stuff. So how is it that you would intend to comply with that? Do a monthly mailing of everything you're doing? How would you do it?
Yes. So what we can do to accommodate is what we...
Wait.
Yeah.
Does it say mail or email? I thought we said email.
It's mail.
Can we ask to turn that to
All right,
email?
at this point, if you'll just respond to Ms. Jensen's question. All right. So do you have an answer to her question?
Yeah. So yes, what we do is we have a little 5x7 sheet which lists out for the month what the upcoming tastings would be, and we can give them that. And we would it would probably be more efficient if we can email, if that's possible. And also, just so you know, too, because a lot of times, let's say a winemaker is coming in town, so it's last minute. So just so you know, sometimes it's very hard for us to give a 10 days notice. Not that we don't want to, we want to give us, but sometimes they're in town and it's a very special guest. So it might, and they only give us like 2 or 3 days notice. So, I mean, and we're more than happy to let our neighbors know, but just so you know, sometimes we don't get notified until, before the 10 days. So.
Ms. Jensen? All right. Seeing no other questions, thank you. You'll have time to respond at the end.
Thank you.
We do have people in the audience who have submitted cards. I will call your name. Come forward. You'll have 3 minutes to address us. If, for example, somebody has already said exactly what you want to say, you could simply say you agree with Mr. X. So the first speaker will be Crystal Lopez, and she will be followed by Josh Mix.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here to speak about Artisan Wine Depot. My name is Crystal Lopez, and I've worked with Christine Tran and the folks at Artisan Wine Depot for the past 4 years. I'm also a local resident here in Los Gatos. I work for a company called St. Michel Wine Estates. We are importers and owners of fine wines from all over the world. We represent over 23 different brands. My position is Business Development Manager, and in my role, I sell wine first and foremost, and I also conduct educational trainings. One of my biggest customers is Artisan Wine Depot, and over the past 4 years, I've conducted probably a dozen different trainings and educational tastings at her El Camino location in Mountain View. I believe adding this location will bring tremendous value and educational opportunities which do not currently exist in the local wine bars and restaurants in the community. As a wine supplier to Artisan Wine Depot, when I conduct these tastings, we are held to standards of alcohol beverage control, ABC, as well as being TIPS trained and certified, which most of the people in my profession are required to do. This means that we are required to card anybody who we feel is not over the age of 21, and we are also required to pour no more than 1 ounce of alcohol per tasting, and to determine on our own belief whether or not people are being overserved. And in my history with Artisan Wine Depot, I have never come across anybody who has been overserved or appears drunk. These tastings are extremely about education. People who come to the store are extremely wine savvy, have traveled the world, have been to most of these places where the wines have been made themselves, whether it's Italy or France, Spain. The wine itself is just a bonus. They are really there for education, to meet the winemakers, to hear more stories, and go home with a couple bottles of wine to enjoy. A lot of times as well, I will see and meet, 30 seconds. I will see meet couples who come, let's say on a Friday night for their date night. They'll come to Artisan Wine Depot, have a few tastes of wine, buy a couple bottles, and then go to a local restaurant for dinner. So it's also a great opportunity to get some more foot traffic here in downtown for the local restaurants and support them. Artisan Wine Depot is a world-class establishment. There's not a lot of places like it in the Bay Area that I have seen. I work from South San Francisco all the way to Big Sur, and to have, okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Josh Mix, followed by Lorraine Lauren.
Council, Mayor, thank you very much. My name is Josh Mix, and I work with Southern Wine and Spirits. The division I work in is called American Wine and Spirits. We're a fine wine, family-owned, small production distributor from Southern. Essentially, what we do is sell wine to Christine and help her facilitate tastings, bring people from all over the world who are winemakers or from established wineries to present to people that have never seen them before. A lot of times, these wines cost $50, $60, $70, over $100 a bottle, and most people don't feel comfortable purchasing wine at that price without trying it. So we really allow people to get comfortable, know the wine, learn about the area, get excited about the product, and then purchase it and feel comfortable when they go home. One thing that I think is important trying a wine is feeling at home, feeling comfortable. Joe, Christine, their entire staff are all knowledgeable. They know how to sell the wine, but they also know how to make you feel comfortable. And it's really, really hard when there are thousands of wines around the world and people don't know a lot. So when you're comfortable, and you understand the wines, they're conducting good business, making great sales, people come back. I think they're going to be a valuable asset to Los Gatos because they have what it takes to make people come back, spend money downtown, eat out. It's really just a family-owned and operated business that caters to what Los Gatos is. I've grown up in the Bay Area. I went to Bellarmine, and then I went down to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. I studied wine in the wine program and moved on about 5 years ago. I've been in the industry for 5 years, and every single time that I've been to their business, it's a great time. They conduct a good business, and I really think that this is something that you guys should consider and will do well. Not only are Christine and Joe, like they said, trained professionals, but I think that what they have to offer is going to be of great value to you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you. Lorraine Lauren, followed by Horst Brenner.
Good evening, council members and mayor. Sorry, I'm a little sick right now. I've known Joe for 7.5
I'm sorry, would you please get closer to the mic so we can hear every word you say?
Sorry, I'm a little sick right now. I've known Joe for 7.5 years, and I've grown up in Los Gatos in Saratoga my entire life. I've participated in their tastings at Purple Onion Cafe and at Artisan Wine Depot. As a younger person who is constantly looking to expand their knowledge on a passion or a hobby, right now it's wine, tomorrow it might be art, I think they would be a wonderful asset to the town of Los Gatos. That's all.
Thank you. Hope you get better soon. Horst Brenner and Kenneth, followed by Kenneth Knox.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Horst Brenner. I'm a resident of Saratoga.
Mr. Brenner, why don't you bring the microphone up? Thank you.
My name is Horst Brenner, a resident of Saratoga for 32 years, and I moved my business, tax preparation business, here to Los Gatos 9 years ago. I've known Joe for 25 years, and he's started quite a number of businesses. He's been very successful, and he sent out, I guess, kind of a trial balloon here with the local residents, with a combined effort with the Purple Onion over in near Aldo's restaurant. He's had about 6 or 8 sample venues, and I've gone there about half the times, maybe with 6 to 10 of my clients, most of them being Los Gatos residents. And we had a pretty good time. It's absolutely not a venue where people would drink wine and excessively. I mean, there are other bars where that happens. The venue here is to answer your questions, to try different wines. For myself, at least, I had a lot of, everyone, at least I do, pretends like they know a lot about wines and pretend you know what the pairings are. But when Joe had his openings, it was a comfortable educational experience. Many people do not drink their entire flight of wine, as you call it. They are just into whites. They skip wines. You don't drink the whole thing. That's not the venue, what it's all about. It's too expensive because you have to buy every little bit that you drink. So it's not very practical from a money standpoint to go there to drink excessively. So that's about it. My experience was very positive. My clients that I took, all of them Los Gatos residents for the most part, had a great time, and I think it would be a great addition for Los Gatos. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenneth Knox, followed by Steve McGrath.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Town Council. I'm Kenneth Knox. I'm a 23-year resident of Foster City. I'm a certified sommelier and Wine Spirits Education Trust Advanced Certified. I worked for the Henry Wine Group for 9 years. I also worked with Bradley Ogden as his sommelier and general manager, and also with Gary Danko. And I've been doing this about 25 years. And all of my 25 years, I've never seen a more organized retail store that concentrates on education. I probably have done almost, in the last 5 years, 100 of these wine education seminars. I bring big maps. People love tasting the wine. It's all organized and advanced. I've also done private parties for Adobe systems, Google, Facebook, and a lot of other tech firms that bring business down to the Los Altos Mountain View area. So I've known Christine about 5 years. She's got a great family. This is a good business. She has a good business plan, and the people that she attracts are all high-end residents of, Mountain View and Los Gatos. So this is a very important venture for her and Joe. They're solid human beings. I think they'll bring a lot of good business to this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve McGrath, followed by Mark Garrett.
Mayor and council members and staff, thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. McGrath, I'll have you bring the mic up. Thank you.
I have to repeat everything again. Hi, everybody. I'm a resident of Los Gatos in Main Street. I am the owner of Yoga Source Los Gatos, over the road from the intended site of Artisan Wine. I want to quickly address a question to formalise a response in that pending the approval of the CUP or in anticipation of it, there is a sublease in place with Artisan Wine and Yoga Source Los Gatos for Los Gatos to use a certain area of the parking lot, which we have a formal agreement in place, including maintenance, use, and so on. I'd like to express support for the issuance of the CUP for Artisan Wine Depot. I have a few different reasons. There are plenty of great restaurants and bars in Los Gatos, each carrying a very limited range of wine products, but the town currently lacks a source of premium products at value retail pricing. As a result, people from the Los Gatos community regularly travel to other areas to procure these products. The addition of Artisan Wine Depot to the local business community will not only allow local residents to conveniently choose from an expansive range of local and international offerings, it will bring valuable retail tax dollars back into Los Gatos. Approving the CUP directly supports the town general plan's public convenience goals to minimise travel into other communities. The high average ticket price, which I think you'll see in the CUP application is around $150, will help to ensure that retail tax revenue is optimised. Artisan Wine Depot have a proven and high quality business, as you know, in their current location in Mountain View. Amongst many other accolades, I think we've already mentioned it, Ms. Tran was recognised as Business Person of the Year for Mountain View 2012. The addition of this business to the local area is highly complementary of the surrounding businesses, such as Lenardi's and Whole Foods. In other words, having food and wine sales in the same general area and proximity improves the efficient use of town infrastructure, such as Los Gatos Boulevard. In other words, if we're already shopping in the area for our food, getting wine in the same trip is more convenient for us and allowing us to use Los Gatos Boulevard just once to get all those products. Artisan Wine Depot has made every effort to ensure they have more than sufficient car parking for their use and ensure no negative impact to the surrounding businesses and neighbours, including ourselves, of course. In my dealings with Joe and Christine, I've found them to be honest and fair with the highest level of integrity, and in summary, I feel that their choice to open a business in Los Gatos is very positive for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mark Garrett, followed by Marlene Rodman.
Good evening. My name is Mark Garrett. I'm a resident of Montecito for the past 3 years, and prior to that, for over 20 years, my family and I lived in Saratoga. I'm currently the Chief Financial Officer of Adobe Systems headquartered in downtown San Jose, and I've been at many tech companies over my career, including Cadence Design Systems, where I met Joe Prang over 20 years ago. There's a very strong need, in my opinion, for this type of business in our area. I and many of my friends who collect wine are forced to travel well up the peninsula to taste and buy wines that we collect. There is nothing like this store that exists in Mountain View in this area down here in Los Gatos, and I would certainly rather keep my business in Los Gatos than drive up the peninsula. I think also it would be a great tax revenue source for the city. I buy wine from Artisan today. I've attended their events up in Mountain View and at the Purple Onion, and they are extremely professionally done. I've known Joe for over 20 years. I know he's going to run a very professional operation here in Los Gatos. I have no doubt about that. So, I think this is a great location. I think there's a dire need for this type of business in the area. I think it's a great tax source for the city, and I know it's going to be well run. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the last card I have, no one else has submitted one. So Marlene Rodman.
Good evening again. First of all, along with reading at night, I enjoy a good glass of wine. And I have found the whole idea of this store I'm very, very excited about, because it is a place that you can not only go and do a tasting, but it's going to be a tremendous gift store, particularly from someone like me who I always say, don't buy me anything unless I can eat it or drink it. So I'm very excited about this because they're also going to have other gift items. So I think this will be a big, big attribute to the town of Los Gatos. And in addition, I have known the Prang family for over 20 years. They, in itself, will be a good addition to our to the business in our community. It's amazing to me. I think I know a lot of people, but I swear Joe gets up and runs around town, and he knows everybody, it seems like. But I think he's doing a tremendous job in promoting, and it will be an extremely good business. Just today, my daughter said to me, Mom, we've got to go up to Artesian. She's having some guests over, and she knows they like a particular wine, but it's the only place she felt comfortable being able to go, which means I have to drive to Mountain View, and it would be much nicer for me if I could just go down the street. So I hope you take this under due consideration, and I hope you approve it handily. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other cards. Does anyone else wish to address us on this agenda item? All right, see no one coming forward. I will ask the applicants if they want to talk to us for 5 more minutes, and at this point, you won't have to have questions interfere with you. You can just talk. So would you like to come up for 5 more minutes?
Well, thank you for considering our proposal, and I just wanted to make a few more points that came up. I think we, again, will complement the local businesses, because the point of difference, because this is the question that we get asked all the time, what makes you different than a Bevmo, or why can't we just get it at Lenardi's? So a lot of these chain stores, they need to buy in certain volumes. So one of the point of difference about us and what makes us unique is that we specialize in small production wines. So a lot of times, some of these bigger stores won't carry it because there's not enough production or enough volume. So the offering is separate from, so it doesn't usually overlap with what like Lenardi's or any of the other like Whole Foods would be offering. That's one thing. And then the other point of difference is that we offer wine pairing. Like just earlier, I was helping a gentleman. He's getting married in 2 weeks, and he went to another store, and he was concerned because he was having a theme-specific wedding, and he needed to pair the wines with the wedding. And he was so grateful that we were able to do that, because he walked into another store that they didn't know. They could recommend wines, but they didn't know how to pair the wines with the food, which he said he was so happy because his coworker was the one who actually recommended him to come over. So those are some of the points of differences that we bring to the table. And also we do a lot of, as mentioned, corporate business, including we've worked with Netflix, which is locally here. So thank you.
Questions of the applicant? All right, seeing none.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes. A couple of questions, if you will. First of all, thank you for your presentation and your interest in Los Gatos. A couple of issues were raised at the Planning Commission. Just want to make sure that they were square with you. One of the concerns was the recommended use for non-formula retail. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was agreeable to you. Another was the store deliveries, and besides the delivery hours of 10 to 8, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 6, Saturday, Sunday was agreeable. And then the immediate residential neighbor shall be notified of upcoming events. I actually did not see it stated that it would be mailed. I just saw it would be noticed within a certain period of time. Yeah.
But we are totally interested to notify.
Okay. I mean, to me, email is certainly a more efficient way to contact at this point in time. And then the disposal of bottles, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sunday, and 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday. That was the limitations, so the noise would not occur. I understood that the bottles would be in cases, basically, so you're not tossing the bottles and breaking them like we get most every other place.
Correct.
The question of lighting, I think you answered that for the Planning Commission. No changes. And then in terms of the, there was a note in our desk item about, this would be the tasting events and times. You were made familiar with that, the changes the staff recommended. There'd be no more than 15 outdoor, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so all of those are agreeable to you.
Yes.
And the further issues the Planning Commission raised, I think were asked and answered in my reading of it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And before we leave the line of Mr. Brzezinski's questions, Mr. Larson, did you have something to add?
I did want to clarify in the desk item we provided today, in the staff report language, we said notify the occupants of the adjacent residences by mail. But in the actual condition language, it says the applicant shall notify immediately adjacent residential, and it doesn't specify mail or otherwise, but it does say 10 days in advance. So given the prior council discussion, if council wishes, staff may try to modify that language to give you options when you get to your action.
Thank you. All right, other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll now close the public testimony portion of our hearing and look to the council for questions, discussion, or motion.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Brzezinski.
I'd like to, I think some of the questions asked earlier were all in relationship to the conditional use permit and what runs with the land. And I'm not particularly interested in reframing your business plan, particularly if you've got a successful business plan. I am interested, though, in the answer to that question that I believe was the issue that Councilwoman McNutt raised. If we could address that, Madam Attorney, at this point, what really are the limits? You clarified it for the Planning Commission in relationship to what will run with the land, and just for our purposes, would you reiterate what it is that we're at risk in tonight? Because, as was pointed out, we're not really looking necessarily to just this business. We're looking to the long-term occupant of this property if we make an approval tonight.
And let me add on to that, same question, but since it runs with the land, couldn't this simply be a liquor store that runs with the land, or a liquor store that has 90 wine tastings a month? Same question?
Yes. Same issue. The proposed conditions, number 2, says expiration, says will expire 2 years from the approval date. So are we really looking at running with the land forever, or do we have a condition that it's expiring in 2 years?
Thank you all.
I'll just speak to the expiration. That's a standard condition that is included in all discretionary approvals, and it's the use has to be vested in order, and then there's no expiration of it.
So to speak to the council's questions about the conditional use permit, this use permit, just like any other conditional use permit that the council approves or has approved in the past, would run with the land. That means that next business could operate the same type of business in the same space. What Planning Commission tried to do and was very careful doing was to narrow the description of what this business is allowed to do and define that use in a more narrow scope than a larger. Planning Commission used the example of a chain retail store that sells fine wine, beer, and spirits. And as you recommended by the Planning Commission, they added to use the term non-formula so that would limit it to a non-formula retailer in the next time. And again, Planning Commission and Council can add to those types of limitations. So whatever you add in the conditional use permit and define the use and limit the use is what the next user would be required to abide by unless they got a CUP amendment.
Mr. Brzezinski?
All right, so, I think the question is, this could theoretically be a non-formula liquor store at a certain point in time. That would be the potential outcome, even though this is a very unique business as far as I can tell, extremely unique business. What would be the provisions that we would have to in any way control or contain the next tenant, assuming that there would be a next tenant? And I know it's it's just an odd property because the proposal is supposed to go to some form of residential at a certain point in time. But would you talk about any of the limitations that we could place on this?
So the CUP requests approval for a retail wine and beer shop with tastings on property zone CH. Conceivably, council could define and limit wines, beers, if they distilled spirits, limit the number of tastings, require that the store offer certain types or regions of wines or craft beers. Again, I'd almost look to the applicant to help us with the language from not verbally, but from their business proposal. Maybe it's not a beer shop, but it's a craft beer store, or it's a fine wine. Again, council has a wide discretion to tailor the CUP with descriptive terms and conditions, not dissimilar to what you did with a restaurant, wine shop in the downtown core area, where you described the amount of retail square footage, the limitations on layout in the store that makes it unique to this type of user and not necessarily to a different type of use. And those are some of the conditions and limitations that council's used on other types of CUPs.
Further questions? Mr. Brzezinski.
Well, I must admit I'm not interested in redesigning this business or in describing every one of the labels that might be on the bottles. I am very comfortable with what's being presented as a viable and responsible business, has a track record, no reports for intervention by police in their previous experience. I think it lines up with all the things we're trying to achieve in terms of a good business coming into town. And I don't exactly know how we constrain any future tenant in this regard, and I don't see these folks having to take responsibility for some unknown future tenant who's waiting downstream to come in and to take this property. So my sense is that I have to admit that I think the Planning Commission did an excellent job. An excellent job of the analysis review and the recommendations and the folding of those recommendations into the conditions of use. And I guess if I look, at what's the worst case scenario, that at a certain point in time this would become a liquor store. We do not prevent or disallow liquor stores in town. We're not saying that, there's anything about this that imitates a bar that would be a standalone bar where people are going to perhaps become intoxicated over a long period of time. I think it's a very unique use, and I believe that the small tastes, you would have to spend an awful lot of time and spend a lot of money if you wanted to walk away from this store at a certain point in time and act in a way that's irresponsible. So I'm inclined to, with the inclusions of the conditions of approval that have been evolved and presented us in the staff report, and that would be on pages, particularly it would be after number 4 on page 2, the inclusion of that language in tasting events and times, and the rest of those inclusions that showed up in the conditions of approval. I will make a motion to accept the Planning Commission's findings and recommendations in the form of the meeting minutes that were contained in attachment 7, and then make the required findings that are contained in attachment 1 in the staff report, and approve the conditions of the conditional use permit with the modifications as recommended by the Planning Commission and contained in the desk items in this report. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Jensen, is that why you're waving at me?
Yes. I'd like to second the motion. I believe that the conditions are sufficiently specific that the type of business that's going to operate here, regardless of who is managing it, I'm comfortable with the conditions. I'd ask the maker of the motion whether he intended to include the, if you will, the modified notification process.
That would be email versus
Yes.
mail. Yes, I am.
So I would support the motion and second it.
Further discussion. Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of questions on the motion. So it references the desk item, but you're talking about the language, proposed language in on page 2, item number 4 and item number 5 on music.
That's correct.
And would the maker of the motion consider making the 2 edits to the boldface in the middle part about the 10 ounces to take out the and between beer and wine and put in 1 day at the end of that sentence?
Okay, let's clarify exactly what that looks like.
So it
in
would say each
practice.
patron shall be limited to no more than 10 ounces of beer or wine or 2 ounces of distilled spirits in 1 day.
I am curious if that's what the proposal was. I would be inclined to that. Is there no issue with that with the staff? Okay, then we exclude the word and.
All right, hold on. So that's okay with the maker of the motion?
Yes.
Seconder?
The removal of and is okay with the seconder.
All right, Ms. McNutt, anything else?
And adding in 1 day?
Mr. Brzezinski?
Again, I hesitate to do too much business plan alteration at this time.
Well, I don't think this is business plan. I think this is CUP language. So again, worst case, my concern is, again, the next one would come along and you have 3 tastings back to back.
All right, before we go any further, Mr. Larson?
Staff did discuss that language with the applicant beforehand, and given it was our assumption it was per day or per visit, we believe that language was to be expected by the applicant.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Okay, I'm inclined to ask the applicant, but we closed the public hearing. So I'm going to rely on staff on this. And the inclusion was Councilwoman McNutt's, this is per day, is what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Brzezinski?
I see that as appropriate and acceptable.
Ms. Jensen?
As a seconder, I wonder if it's more appropriate to say per tasting rather than per day. Because as I understand the tasting events, you wouldn't necessarily go to more than 1 per day or be able to.
Before we go there, staff, then I'll go to Mr. Brzezinski. The issue is tasting versus day.
A suggestion might be per public tasting.
Mr. Brzezinski?
And I think that would be more appropriate.
Ms. Jensen?
That's fine with the seconder.
All right, Ms. McNutt, did you have anything further?
Well, I don't think it actually addresses my concern, because, again, I'm not talking about this business, I'm talking about a future business, and per public tasting, so they have a tasting scheduled at 2, at 3, and at 4. So all of a sudden, you've got three public tastings, and 3 times 10. So you got 30 ounces of beer or wine, or 6 ounces of distilled spirit. I don't actually know how much that is. I don't know if that's enough to
And
get you drunk or not,
$150 a tasting.
for this
All
business.
right, let's not get into
The reason why I'm saying this is basically, I do see this as part of the interference with the business plan. And I am not that concerned about, given the description that they've forwarded us of their business, I'm not that concerned about what is the potential outcome for this acting as an opportunity for some irresponsible behavior on the part of either the individuals who are tasting or the business owners who are monitoring the tasting. So I would be more inclined towards what we've recommended and what the seconder has also recommended.
All right, we have a motion pending. It has conditions to which the motion maker and seconder have agreed. Further discussion. Mr. Brzezinski.
No, I'm sorry. I was just scratching my nose.
Good. Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye, yeah. Aye. That was a reluctant aye.
We don't have those on the agenda. Motion passes unanimously. Good luck.
Just making sure it works.
All right, we're on
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Agenda item 11. I'll read this while people are leaving. This is a regulation of single-use carry-out bags to adopt a resolution determining the program environmental impact report prepared by the County of San Mateo for the reusable bag ordinance be found adequate for the town of Los Gatos action, and adopting the California Environmental Quality Act finding of fact for addition of Chapter 11.40 to the town of Los Gatos Municipal Code regarding single-use carry-out bags, and B, introduce an ordinance of the town of Los Gatos to add a new section 11 to the town of Los Gatos Municipal Code entitled Single-Use Carry-Out Bags. The staff will be beginning with a staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Christina Gilmore, Assistant to the Town Manager. In October 2009, a recommendation for the 15 cities in the county to begin adopting reusable bag ordinances was made by the Recycling and Waste Reduction Commission. In July of 2012, the town adopted its sustainability plan. And in May 6th of this year, the study session, council directed staff to develop a draft ordinance. San Mateo County was the lead agency for the environmental impact report. 24 cities participated in this process, and to date, 7 cities in Santa Clara County have adopted a reusable bag ordinance that is uniform and consistent amongst the jurisdictions. These cities include Campbell, Cupertino, Los Altos, Mountain View, Palo Alto, San Jose, Sunnyvale, and the County of Santa Clara. As was mentioned at the May 6th study session, a draft EIR was issued in June of 2012, and the final EIR was issued in August of 2012. With the proposed ordinance in effect, it is anticipated that 95% of the volume of plastic bags in the study area would be replaced by a combination of paper and reusable bags. 5% or more than 27 million of the exempt plastic bags would still be used each year. The CEQA findings of fact determined that adopting the ordinance would have beneficial and less than significant impacts and 0 negative impacts. No negative impacts were identified in adopting the proposed ordinance, and no mitigation is required. The town conducted an extensive public outreach process as described in your staff report. The provisions of the proposed ordinance are contained in the staff report as well as on this slide. I will be available to answer questions about the ordinance at the end of the presentation. The intent of the ordinance is to reduce environmental impacts and pollution, deter the use of paper bags, promote a shift towards reusable bags, avoid litter in stormwater systems and marine environment, and meet the requirements of the regional stormwater permit. Staff is proposing a February 3rd, 2014 implementation date, and if this ordinance is adopted, an outreach plan educating retailers and residents about the ordinance implementation will be put into place. Alternatives for the council are to not introduce the ordinance and to modify the ordinance with the understanding that additional environmental review may be required depending upon the modification. So tonight, staff's recommendations are adopt a resolution determining the program environmental impact report prepared by the County of San Mateo for the reusable bag ordinance be found adequate for the town of Los Gatos action, and adopting the California Environmental Quality Act findings of fact for addition of Chapter 11.40 to the town of Los Gatos Municipal Code regarding single-use carry-out bags. And 2, introduce an ordinance of the town of Los Gatos to add a new Article 4 to Chapter 11 to the town of Los Gatos Municipal Code entitled Single-Use Carry-Out Bags. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer your questions.
And before we get to questions, do either you, Ms. Gilmore, or Mr. Larson want to put on the record any desk items we have?
Yes, Madam Mayor. The 2 desk items were released this morning or this afternoon. The first is desk item A with additional questions from the council regarding the item, as well as additional public comment that was received through 12 p.m. this morning. And then the second desk item is desk item B, which amends the ordinance title to read Ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos to add a new Article 4 to Chapter 11 to the Town of Los Gatos Municipal Code entitled Single-Use Carry-Out Bags, as well as an additional piece of correspondence that was received before 3 p.m. this afternoon.
And there was an addendum distributed Friday with additional public comment.
And maybe we, I think, have item on our desk dated August 16, 2013. Was that already included from Save Our Shores? Or was that a new item?
The letter from Save Our Shores, I believe, came in after 3 p.m. this afternoon, so it was not included in the desk item.
Okay, thank you.
If all members of the council received it, though, this can serve as acknowledgement that it was part of your consideration.
Thank you. All right, first thing, questions of staff. I see no questions of staff, and so I do have a number of cards, and you will each have 3 minutes for your presentation. Some of these are not quite clear to me how we are going to proceed, so I'm just going to call the name on the card. The first card is Ellie Sandman and Ella Chovkowski. So I assume you're coming together and you will have 3 minutes together.
Hi, I'm Ella Olakowski.
And I'm Allie Sandman.
And tonight we're representing St. Mary's of Los Gatos.
And we have a plastic wrap for you.
Plastic, plastic, no, no, no. They should be chatting on every talk show. Us crazy humans use too much. Can we get rid of it? There's no such.
It's filling up the ocean in crazy slow motion, causing a heck of a commotion. This message should be on every billboard, on TV. We'll be shouting with every vocal cord.
It's in our bloodstream, it's in a disguise. Use a microscope or use your God-given eyes. Don't you cry, don't you throw a fit. You're God's child, do something about it.
What's the solution? How about a substitution? We got something pretty persuadable. It's biodegradable, spider silk, paper, or something fresh. Think it with our minds is in our flesh. in class, we talked about the problems of plastic, and in California alone, we use about 19 billion plastic bags a year, and it kills many animals. And Ella, will you tell me about the ways that it kills the animals?
The ways the animals are killed is choking, starvation, and invasive species. Animals are killed when it chokes on a piece of plastic that can't fit down its throat, causing it to starve or die. Invasive species is when an animal can get caught on a piece of plastic and a current can take it to a new habitat where its necessary resources are unavailable. Allie, can you tell us how banning the bag will benefit Los Gatos?
Banning the bag in Los Gatos will help keep our water safe and save animals from getting killed.
Together we can ban the plastic bag. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know people think I'm a grumpy person, but that's okay. Please, in order so we can get through this quickly and nicely, no clapping, even though they whatever they say. All right. Next, I may have the same name here again, but I have Allie Sandman, and that was the people we just had. You submitted 2 cards, correct? All right. Next, I have Nicole Vieira.
Hello, Town Council. My name is Nicole Vieira, and I currently live in San Jose, and I'm currently a student at St. Mary's School. I have actually prepared, I won't be talking this presentation.
Plastics can be found all over the world.
I will be presenting a visual video. Enjoy.
Plastics can be found all over the world. We find plastics at home. We find plastics at school and in our lunches. As helpful as plastic is, it still has problems. See this plastic water bottle? See this plastic bag? Bottles and bags like these are called single-use plastic. They can be only used once and are usually thrown out.
Still we do not make that cut. We choose not to remove one part.
Most people think they are putting their plastic in the recycling bin, where it really belongs.
We choose not to remove one part. We do not make that.
But only 7% of that plastic is recycled each year. The rest of that plastic is usually thrown out, but in the wrong place. It usually ends up on the ground, like in this picture. Usually, if they are left out in the environment like that, they end up in storm drains, running to the ocean. After running through the storm drain tunnels, the plastic finally makes it to the ocean. This is where the real problem is. Animals live in the ocean, and they can possibly die from eating plastic.
Our collective situation, since we continue and continue and continue and continue and continue. Since we continue and continue and continue and continue and continue. It suggests their species-wide madness or something quite different.
But we can stop plastic pollution. Here's some helpful ideas to get you started on stopping plastic pollution. First, bring your own reusable bag. And you can also use your own reusable water bottle. You can put reusable containers in your lunch instead of plastic bags. Get involved with organizations like Monterey Bay Aquarium and Save Our Shores. Together, we can stop plastic pollution.
Thank you. Next have Cynthia Palacio, followed by Lynn Dickerson.
Madam Mayor, Council, and City staff, my name is Cynthia Palacio. I am the Senior Analyst in Public Works at the City of Mountain View. And I'm here to let you know of Mountain View's experience in adopting the reusable bag ordinance that was effective April 22nd this year. We cleaned out a storm drain that covered 200 acres and had a trash capture device in it. That was in March before the ordinance was implemented. There was about 2,400 pounds of leaf debris and other litter in it. That's about equal to, because it's heavy and it's wet, it was about 4 cubic yards of material. The public works crews spread it out in the yard, and they raked about the first 4 inches of it, and they stopped raking because it was filled with plastic bags. Then we cleaned out that same storm drain again at the end of June, I think it was. The material was much lighter because it was drier. It's later in the season. But the amount of plastic bags was just about nil. I think we had 2 plastic bags in that material, and it was about, maybe a yard or a yard and a half of material. The other litter in that in the load was styrofoam cups or pieces of them, and mostly the snack bags, the individual snack bags. So quite a difference. San Jose had a similar experience. They evaluated their reusable bag ordinance about a year later. They had an 89% reduction in the amount of plastic bags found in the storm drains that flow out to the bay. They had about 60% reduction in litter found on your streets and in your neighborhoods. So it's pretty significant improvement. I just wanted to share that with you and let you know that Mountain View supported this ordinance because it was also supported by the Santa Clara County Cities Association, the Santa Clara Valley Water District, and the Recycling and Waste Reduction Commission of Santa Clara County. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait a minute. We have a question. Ms. Jensen.
Thank you for coming. My question is, have you had any experience, because we've gotten a lot of communication, as you might imagine, on this issue, or done any research on any change in shoplifting in Mountain View since the adoption of the ordinance?
No. If anything, from our visual observations of people in stores, they're taking out, they're not using bags at all. If they're purchasing a single item, they're taking them out. We haven't noticed an increase in shoplifting that I know of. The police department would have let me know that it had an adverse effect. Stores are in support. The California Grocers Association has been in support of this and is unable to be here tonight. So we haven't seen any increase in shoplifting that I am aware of. I haven't received any complaints, and believe me, we talk to retailers.
Thank you. Questions? That's it. Lynn Dickerson, followed by Lindsay Kubo.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Council. My name's Lynn Dickerson. I've been a almost 30-year resident of Los Gatos. I've been a teacher at St. Mary's School for, this is my 20th year, and I've been teaching science for 10. If you haven't guessed already, I've brought some of my students along tonight because I think hearing from the next generation is probably the most important thing, people you could hear from. I know when I was young, my mom was a recycler, one of the first to do recycling of newspapers. I saw all your bins out there. Look how far we've come. At that point, my dad used to say, "What are you saving papers for? Get rid of them." No. Now it's our turn. We're trying to pass along to this next generation sort of the next step in the recycling process. And what I learned about a year ago, I had taken a class at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I thought I was an environmentalist. Not radical, but I recycled. Until I attended that, and until I started to do research with these students who did a year-long project, I didn't know what I didn't know. I mean, it was just amazing to me. It attacks your heart and your mind when you find out the creatures in our world that are being affected by a plastic bag. And I think anybody who's here tonight recycles. We do our best, or we wouldn't be here talking to the council about things we care about. But we cannot control what happens to that plastic bag once we think we've put it in the right place. It blows out. One dead animal, one more turtle that dies, one more species that we don't have in our world is something that we need to protect. We need to protect that. That is one too many. And my job as a teacher was to inspire these students. And they don't just know about the environment. They know about the history of plastic. They know about the science of plastic. Why doesn't it break down? The plastic that is, all the plastic in history still has not broken down. Anything that's been made has not broken down. And in the last 10 years, in the last decade, since 2000, that's 13, we've had more plastic in the last 13 years than in all of history combined. So we need to take a step. Los Gatos, who's a very with it community, needs to take a step, needs to join, get on the bandwagon for our kids and to make a statement for them. And I brought my bag monster along. Don't feed the bag monster. Bring your own bag.
Thank you. And who is your bag monster? Thank you. Lindsay Kubo, followed by Kathy Morgan.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, and this is Rosalie. We're here to.
Why don't you pull it down so we can hear you better? Thank you.
We're here to show you about plastic. We have a book here that we're going to read. It's made by two of our classmates, and we'd like to read it to you. Okay. It's dedicated to the St. Mary's School class of 2015 and to Miss Dickerson. The life of the plastic bag is a lesson on why you should recycle your single-use plastic. It all started when an innocent plastic bag was left stranded in the parking lot of a grocery store. An Augusta wind carried the bag into the streets of the little town called Los Gatos. It started to rain in Los Gatos, and the plastic bag was forced down the drain. The water in the storm drain carried the bag to the Los Gatos Creek, and the journey began. The Los Gatos Creek carried the plastic bag to the San Francisco Bay. After the long journey through the San Francisco Bay, the plastic bag drifted under the Golden Gate Bridge and into the Pacific Ocean with all the living organisms. Suddenly, a fish spots the plastic bag out of the corner of its eye. It mistakes it for food. He eats the plastic bag and soon starts to choke. The fish dies from eating the plastic bag and washes up on shore. That is the sad end of the little fish, but not the plastic bag. It gets picked up by a blast of wind and is dropped out in the ocean, where it is spotted by a large seabird looking for a tasty jellyfish dinner. And the story, unfortunately, continues. This is how a plastic bag being left in the parking lot of a grocery store can kill many organisms all around the world. More than 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine animals die every year from ingestion of plastics or entanglement in plastics. Support your city in banning single-use plastic so you can save our environment. It's never too late to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. And before you leave, we have Lindsay Kubo. And which one is?
I'm Rosalie.
And the other one is?
I'm Rosalie.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Morgan, followed by Karen Johnson.
Kathy Morgan, 142 Wheeler Avenue. Before speaking tonight, I decided to do more than just state my opinion about bags that are used once and then a few times recycled, but mostly just thrown away, to make this long journey that they vividly described. So I went online, and I know that you must have been bombarded by facts, and by facts that are contradictory. Two of them that stuck with me as especially forceful were from an organization called One Bag at a Time, because I had thought that the plastic bags were made from petroleum. I wanted to know if I was right. Apparently that is true, that 8 to 10% of our total oil supply is used for plastic bags. If you took the bags one American used in a year, he could drive his car an extra 60 miles. And the second claim I was interested in was that the bags are okay, they're good to use, they're fine to use because they're 100% recyclable. From the Clean Air Council, I learned that 100% recyclable does not really happen in real life. That they're fraught with complications and difficulties and glitches so that it doesn't come out nearly 100%. It costs apparently $4,000 per ton to do that, but the bags are only sold for $32. So we're wasting a lot of money, we're wasting a lot of oil, we're wasting a lot of lives of these innocent marine animals. And I would hope that for the present and the future of Los Gatos, including the future of these people right here, including bag monsters and other wonderful creations, that you approve the ban on plastic bags.
Thank you. Karen Johnson, and then Joseph, looks like Sue or C.
My name's Karen Johnson. I live on 17 South. I saw someone in the Los Gatos Library with a Grow Greener bag, I believe, and I Googled that and then found info on the website and then found more information about the meeting that was held in July. Someone at that meeting made a point in favor of plastic bags, saying, oh, what are you going to do now? You are voting on this and telling me what to do. But I just want to make some points on previous things that used to be common that are no longer, because it has been found better for the overall people. Long ago, you used to be able to just smoke wherever you wanted. Surgeon General found that secondhand smoke is toxic. So now many states prohibit smoking in public. Same thing regarding DUIs. You can no longer drink and drive. It is against the law. Seatbelts are another common thing. It's the law. We wear them for safety. We are now finding environmental studies regarding single-use plastic of bags and single-use bottles that they are, while handy, overall not good for the environment. Another example is the CRV, California Redemption Value. We pay for that when we buy our soda, and some people just choose to put it in their weekly curb, or some take it in and get the money back. 11 states currently have that. It should be all states. The current bag ordinance needs to happen. There are so many reasons why. It costs millions per year to protect the wildlife in the oceans from this happening. Last year's in San Jose, with a lot of people put their recycling in a plastic bag and then just put it. They don't realize the bags get caught in the machinery. It stops the recycling. Last year in San Jose, they estimated $1 million spent on repairs. Over 267 species have been scientifically documented to be affected by plastic bag debris, like what the children were talking about when they go into the storm drains and out into the ocean. Currently, there are San Francisco supervisors that are calling for a statewide ban on single-use bags. The single-use grocery bags are used for just minutes, but end up causing permanent pollution problems. I encourage you to vote yes for this, and I hope that all plastic bags will be no longer used, just paper bags only. Thank you.
Joseph Sue or C, followed by Dean Peterson.
Dear Mayor and the City Council, it's nice time I get to speak in this meeting, and your city is a pretty fine city. But I feel that it's finer than San Jose because of a number of reasons, but the most important reason is actually the city actually listens to the people, unlike San Jose, which is an interest. And I believe in government for the people, not opposite way around. Yes, I know no matter how good a proposal is, I think the people have to approve it first. It's just like how grocers in Los Gatos only last ones to ask paper or plastic, not just give whichever is most frugal for them. Give them a choice. The city should give people a choice as well. I know last year the city knows that the businesses and residents don't want the idea, especially don't want the fees on non-plastic bags. So the city said, if anyone is going to do this, it's going to be a state. I don't know why the city would be changed this time. But I know before you make an ordinance to take people's rights and choices, you give residents a say. And then I know last time in the bag meeting, 10 out of 14 people spoke up against the idea, especially about not just the ban, but the fee on non-plastic bags. I think people should have a right to use non-banned items, just like anything else in the ordinance has banned. Like when we ban styrofoam, we should be allowed to use biodegradables or other containers without restrictions. I mean, when does Los Gatos have set prices in a private store before for anything? Your city will be otherwise perfect if you listen to residents, not just special interest groups, which often give biased information. I know that in San Jose, the data is actually pretty flawed because it shows that between 2010 and 2011, before the bag ban, actually the bag litter reduced the same amount. So it's probably something else that reducing, such as bulldozing the homeless encampments this year from Guadalupe River and other creeks. And now the most important thing is about the people, about the vendors, about who submitted emails. They need a year to get rid of current bags. The council rejecting their request, and one vendor says undignified to ask customers to pay 10 cents or 25 cents a bag, which up when they bought $100 worth of soaps, and those vendors often use paper bags and thick plastics, and they rarely use them. So if we are considering that burden businesses and public, you should come to a sense that you can put wills of the residents first, not even no matter how good that idea is. That's all.
Thank you. Dean Peterson and then Ronald Meyer.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm Dean Peterson. I'm the Director of Environmental Health for San Mateo County. And on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of San Mateo County, I'd like to thank you for considering this and joining our regional effort. I'll keep my comments brief. I wanted to make 2 points. The effort that we went on this was unique on 2 main reasons. And these reasons are not only because they were unique, but they're important. It was unique in the fact that we went regionally, that we went beyond the county, invited other cities to do it. The reason that is such an important process is that the state was trying to do this at the state level, has unable to be able to do that. We feel that we need to be consistent amongst this for businesses, for the public, and so regionally having a similar ordinance is very important. The other unique and important aspect is the fact that this was one of the first bag ordinances and efforts led by a public health agency, and that was Environmental Health Division within San Mateo County. Many others have been either environmental groups or city manager groups or other type of individuals. And because of that, we were able to vet out not only the environmental issues, but also the public health issues. And we feel we have presented to this council and other councils an ordinance that is both effective in protecting the environment and public health. And I am here to answer any questions the council may have.
Questions for Mr. Peterson? See none. Thank you very much for coming. Ronald Meyer, followed by Jim Fox.
Hi, my name is Ronald Meyer, and I've been a resident of Los Gatos since 1988. I sent off an email expressing my opposition to this proposed ban. I have a few questions that I think need to be asked and answered at this meeting and possibly after the meeting. What is the problem the proposed ban solves? The problem is litter. It's not plastic bags. There's litter in our environment regardless of whether it's plastic, paper, or whatever. The problem is litter, not plastic bags. How big and pervasive is the problem? I have not seen any environmental impact reports in San Mateo County or any other documentation that is either quantified or qualified how big the problem is. What are the major sources of the problem? How does the ban serve the people and residents and the businesses of Los Gatos? What are the benefits to the people and residents of Los Gatos? What are the costs to the people and residents and the businesses of Los Gatos? And what are the inconveniences caused? How many options were explored as possible solutions? Biodegradable plastic bags. And I take issue with the 7% recyclable number. Since recycling has started here in the state of California, I would suspect that those statistics are understated. I take my plastic bags and I reuse them. In addition, when I'm finished with them, I put them in a bag and I put them in my recycle bin, as West Valley has suggested we do, and then they go ahead and take care of recycling. Paper bags left to the discretion of the business, and then how many options have been explored in terms of letting the owners, the discretion of the business, determine what types of paper bags and whether to charge or not to their customers? Why do we need to specify that the bags have to be 100% recyclable? This is micromanagement. This is not what government's about. How were the exempt stores and customers and the categories of stores affected determined? From my personal observations along the Sonoma Lake Creek, Lexington Reservoir, and other waterways in the South Bay, the vast majority of the plastic bag litter is from fast food restaurants, which are exempt from this ordinance. I see Subway, McDonald's, KFC bags. I don't see bags from Safeway, Lenardi's, or any of the other ones that are now targeted for this ordinance. What are the criteria that were used to make the determinations? How does the proposed ban reconcile itself with the role of government as it affects the lives and the people and residents and businesses of Los Gatos? Where in the California State Constitution or the Los Gatos Town Articles of Incorporation allow you to do this kind of stuff? And then how does the proposed ban make the lives of the people and residents and business owners of Los Gatos better? I want to see answers to these questions. In addition, I also challenge some of the statistics that were presented by previous people at this podium.
Thank you. Jim Fox and then Brad Hunt.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to speak. I don't come here very often, but I do when it's a subject that's close to my heart, and this happens to be one of them. Based on what I read on the internet, I'm sorry, I'm not used to public speaking. They were mentioning about 15 million plastic bags per year are produced by Los Gatos. If you break that down, I'm an Excel guy, so I'm a numbers cruncher. That's an estimated number of 531 number of bags per year, 365 days a year. That's 1.45 bags per day. And I can only go by my house. My house, there are two people. We go through maybe 2.9 bags per day, 20 bags per week, 52 weeks a year, and this is high. That would be us going around, this is the estimated numbers. That would be, we'd be going through 1,059 bags per year, if using their numbers, because there's estimated 29,000 on the last census. My actual usage for two people is 4 bags per week. 52 weeks a year, that's 208 bags per year. 0 of those bags are litter. Now, their statistics are talking about litter. I'm assuming that when I take my bags to the trash and I put them in the recycling, that our recycling company and our trash bag puts them where they belong. They don't put them in the waterways. They don't end up in the oceans. If they are, then we got to change whoever they are. From the definition, this is a single-use bag. Can anybody think of any other uses that could be used for this bag? This is a single-use bag. I have no problems banning plastic. I have major problems banning paper, which is recyclable. And the statistics that you come out with, they don't work in Los Gatos. There's no way I use that many bags a year. I wrote an article in 2008, and most of it is still true today. Final part of it is, let's face it, the only way to stop the litter is to stop litterers. As a result of the raising of selfish and irresponsible people that don't care what happens, ban them. Don't ban the thing. Don't ban the paper bags. Plastic, if you want to ban that, I can see the environmental impact of plastics. Paper, why paper? You know, I use this paper bag for multiple things. I've got about 30 of them sitting ready to be used. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brad Hunt, and then Don Williams.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Brad Hunt. I'm with Save Our Shores. First, I'd like to commend you for how quickly you moved forward with your single-use plastic ban ordinance. I know you brought this up to the council in May, and you're back here in August, so I commend you for moving so quickly on that. To address some of the gentleman's concerns with statistics and numbers, the recycling rate that the young lady cited earlier was actually incorrect. As far as plastic bags go, there was a report put out, I can't remember the organization, but it was 4% that were recycled, and plastic bags are not typically recycled. They're downcycled because of the material they're made out of. San Jose saw an 89% reduction in plastic bags in their storm drains 1 year after the implementation of their ban. They saw a 59% reduction in that litter in their creeks and rivers, and a 60% reduction in their streets. So those are some numbers that you can go by. You can contact San Jose City Council to find out more about that. Observation records show that reusable bags increased greatly following the implementation of the ordinance. Almost 4% of bags were observed prior, 62% after the ban went into effect. The overall impact was an average number of single-use bags per customer decreased from 3 bags to 0.3 per visit. The organization I work for, we work on the central coast of California. We conduct over 200 cleanups per year along the central coast in Santa Cruz and Monterey County. Since 2007, we started actually counting the number of bags. We've found over 35,000 plastic bags since then. I think this year the number is going up to 38. We saw in 2011 and 12, we decided to isolate plastic bags. After the bans went into effect, it went down from 19 per cleanup on average to 8, and this year we're seeing even less. We also were contracted with the county and with the city of Santa Cruz to do surveys to determine what the impact of the bag bans were. 1 month before the ban in Santa Cruz County, 10% of shoppers were using reusable bags at stores. 1 month after, with a 10-cent fee, it jumped up to 82%. So people were willing to change their behavior and start using reusable bags. Those that didn't use reusable bags, as already stated earlier, they would take out items in their hands because they were only purchasing 1 or 2 instead of automatically being given a bag. Capitola implemented their ban. Their rate jumped from 53% of people using reusable bags or no bags before the ban to 89% after. In the city of Santa Cruz, 46% before were using reusable bags. After their ban went into effect, 80%. So these bag bans are effective. I'm here to speak in support of that and tell you that they are working. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Williams, and then Robbie Biller.
Hi, I'm Don Williams, and these guys stole some of my thunder, but I'll go over these points anyway. I'm from the Stop the Bag Ban Citizens Group, at stopthebagban.com. We're a grassroots group of private citizens from the South Bay cities, including Los Gatos. We care about the environment, but we oppose bag bans as misguided law. I want to just ask several key questions. Have you really considered the serious consequences of bag bans? We know that people do not wash reusable bags, and they pose a serious public health risk. I have multiple stories from clerks at San Jose stores about dealing with filthy cat hair covered bags that get thrown up on the counters all the time. Second, Los Gatos has a beautiful downtown area of upscale stores that invites people to window shop and browse. Are you really going to pass a law mandating that people schlep around armloads of reusable bags everywhere or face financial penalties? This just doesn't fit Los Gatos. Third, as someone mentioned, where's the bag problem in Los Gatos? I think these kids have bought more bags than I've ever seen in Los Gatos in all the time driving around here. Four, have you ever required a minimum fee on a product? And let's face it, the paper bag fees are essentially a tax, paid as a bribe to business owners at the expense of the public. And you wonder why the stores are not opposing it, the big stores in particular, because they're making millions of dollars. 5, why don't you ban plastic newspaper bags? Isn't anyone concerned about the thousands of bags that gets thrown into driveways and gutters every day? I got one this morning. I don't know why. It's sunny today. Why are some privileged groups exempt from the ban? Why does your ordinance require a minimum charge for reusable bags when San Jose does not? So your ordinance differs from San Jose. Some stores in San Jose give out reusable bags for free. The Dollar Tree store does that. So this puts Los Gatos at a competitive disadvantage. And where's your concern about the impact to your citizens? At a time value of only $12 per hour, it costs each family $250 a year to manage, wash, maintain reusable bags, which is over $3 million per year for Los Gatos citizens. I hear these statistics about they cleaned up a few less bags in the streets, but you've got to do a cost-benefit analysis. It turns out to be, even San Jose, if you believe it and I don't believe it, turns out to be $10,000 to $15,000 per bag. You know, the citizens had to pay in order for them to collect a few less bags. And I haven't seen any rates go down in San Jose. My garbage rates haven't gone down. My tax rates haven't gone down. So in your public meeting, over 2/3 of the people opposed the ban, 57% opposed in the Los Gatos patch poll, and 61% opposed in the emails you received, and 85% opposed by phone. So the people oppose the bag bans. We hope that you'll put it to a vote of the people. We're qualifying an initiative to repeal the bag ban in Campbell, and we'll do the same in Los Gatos if you don't put it to a vote of the people. Our side asks for you to let the people vote. The other side doesn't. They want you to force it on everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robbie Biller of San Jose. I attended the earlier meeting on, I think it was the 25th, and one of my questions was, what do the vendors at the farmers market think of this? I believe I asked Christina about this, and she said that she was remiss and she would investigate it. This sparked my curiosity, and I decided to just conduct my own little experiment. And I went to the farmer's market, as I normally do as I was shopping. And I asked most of the vendors what their opinion would be on the plastic bag bans. And I asked them if they would support an exemption for the farmer's market. And I have collected pages of signatures from vendors here. I have over 24 signatures from over 22 separate vendors at the farmer's market. That's a lot of vendors there. There's, this is a farmer's market in Los Gatos. There's not hundreds of vendors. I don't have an exact count of the vendors, but that is a lot of the vendors. And they do not like the bag bans. They would support an exemption for the farmer's market. I personally use several reusable bags at the farmer's market. They're very handy for some things, like things that can take abuse, celery, potatoes, and things. If you try to use too many reusable bags with peaches, other soft fruits, you kind of end up with peach jam. It's really easy for that to happen. So that's why I think I use reusable bags where they're appropriate, and sometimes plastic bags are appropriate. And so I also talked to one of the vendors, and he said that he noticed business goes down in places where they have the plastic bag bans. And so if we really think about that, then if we want to prevent people from buying fresh, healthy produce, then this bag ban is a fantastic idea. But if we wish to encourage people to eat healthier, then I think we need to reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry McCoy and then Rachel Gibson.
Hi, I'm Jerry McCoy, 147 Hillbrook Drive in Los Gatos.
I'm going to speak in opposition to the paper bag portion of this legislation. Here are my thoughts. I understand the plastic bag ban. They fly around. They're a nuisance. Your points were excellent, though, so maybe I'll change my mind. Paper sacks, on the other hand, I don't see flying through the air or across the ground. In my house, when they're not used for other purposes, they're readily recyclable in our blue bins, which we pay a recycling fee for. This legislation, as I understand, is mandating that grocers charge a 10 cents a fee, bag fee. It will now be against the law for the grocer not to charge a fee. I presume this will be enforceable through fines or worse. This sounds incredibly absurd to me because, I'm kind of a libertarian. It should not be government's role to dictate to a grocer how he should treat his customer or manage his costs. It should be the government's role to encourage and educate and to promote, not to pass laws that interfere with businesses on such a minor level. Look at what has happened in this town in the last few years without legislation. Every grocer sells or gives away reusable bags. I must have 20 bags in my cars that my family uses. Some retailers give money back to customers who bring in bags to package their goods. Other retailers provide bags free that have their advertising logo on them, that sort of thing. I went to a store today and there's the sign walking in, don't forget your bag. Businesses in this town have already taken action to address environmental concerns. And businesses in Los Gatos, in choosing to reward customers who reuse bags, have taken the carrot approach to modify behavior. The city is choosing to use a stick. Los Gatos can be proactive in reducing the use of paper bags with education and encouragement and substantially achieve the desired goal without this legislation. We have a highly educated and environmentally conscious citizenry here, fully capable of making behavioral changes to improve our environment. And just because the city of San Jose has adopted similar legislation does not mean we have to follow suit. So I expect this thing will get passed. And so in tongue-in-cheek, here's what you can do next. Ban balloons, especially the Mylar type. Plastic cutlery at restaurants should be replaced with reusable forks. Require that grocers charge extra money for non-organic vegetables. And finally, since cows produce methane, a global warming gas, you should require that grocers charge an extra $1 a pound to discourage the use of meat. Thank you.
Thank you. The last card I have is Rachel Gibson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name is Rachel Gibson. I'm with Santa Clara Valley Water District's Office of Government Relations, and out of regard for the lateness of the hour, I'll state simply that the district strongly supports legislative efforts such as this ordinance that seek to reduce the waste coming into our waterways. Consequently, we'd urge you to adopt the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other cards. All right, see no one coming forward from the audience, I will close the public testimony part of our hearing and look to my fellow council members for questions, motions, ideas. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Spector. I have some questions for staff that are not clearly highlighted in the, from what I've heard from the public testimony this evening. And one of those questions is, how do we intend to enforce our retailers to collect this money? How do we monitor them? And if they choose not to participate, is there a penalty or some kind of action we would take to make them comply?
We have included within the ordinance and enforcement section that would
assign penalties to any retailer who was found to not be in compliance with the ordinance. The penalties would begin at $100. They would increase to $200 and then increase to $500. So our intent is to have the enforcement on a complaint basis only. So people would be observing the business or the retailer out of compliance with the ordinance. They would contact the town, and the town would investigate, and if the business or the retailer was found out of compliance, a letter would be sent informing the retailer of the ordinance and the provisions of the ordinance, and then we would follow up thereafter to ensure that they were following the ordinance. And if at that time, if it was found to do a fine within that $100, $200, and $500 range, then that would be conducted at that time.
You may, go ahead.
For the people watching at home this evening, how do we classify this charge of the proposal, which is currently 10% for, or 10 cents a bag for paper bags for 2014, and 25 cents per bag in 2015? Obviously, it's stated over and over that it's not a tax. What is it? How do we as a government entity, how are we able to dictate to a business and tell them to charge for a product or for their marketing or for the service they're giving to their customers?
I'll start the response, and if Ms. Gilmore needs to add to it from a practical standpoint. But as indicated in some of the materials, in a case called Schmier versus County of Los Angeles, this very issue has already been litigated and decided by the courts, upholding the charge for that. It goes to the retailer. It's not imposed by government, and it doesn't, and that money's not retained by government. As pointed out during that litigation, California League of Cities filed a brief in that case, in the Schmier versus County of Los Angeles case, pointing out that there's a long-standing practice for government to regulate private economic activities. For example, government's already authorized to regulate minimum wage, living wages at local levels, rent control at local levels, and certainly at state and federal level regulates prices and even fixes prices on certain goods. Again, we're relying on a court decision that certainly did not categorize this charge as a tax imposed by government.
Further questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So there was a court case in Los Angeles that was held, and they had a ruling in that jurisdiction. But when you're talking about things like rent control and various state and federal laws, a local government that tells a business you have to charge 25 cents for a bag, has that ever been done in the history of our town? And where do we draw the line? I think of things like pizza boxes and shoe boxes and hat boxes and all the retailers we have downtown, and you need a package to carry out your item. And we have a lot of folks who come to town and they shop, and they're tourists or even our local residents who they know that they have a choice currently where they can take their own bags if they wish, but on many occasions I think they know that when they go out they prefer not to choose to take their own bags when they're frequenting some of our merchants downtown. So where am I going with this? I guess, where do you draw the line at the local level for when this is like a regional one-size-fits-all plan that San Mateo has put together, this environmental report? Did we do any outreach? I saw your outreach on the screen, but we had, I guess, 739 retailers that were contacted. Have we done any surveying? Because I heard a number of residents here this evening speak, mostly not against the plastic bag ban, but the charging for the paper bag bans. So I guess where I'm uncomfortable with this is what kind of a survey or outreach did we do other than we had one community meeting? How do the downtown retailers really feel about this? I know how the Clean Safe Water people in the water district in St. Mary's feels about it, but for our economic engine in Los Gatos, how do they really feel about it? How do the residents really feel about it?
So in answer to your questions, no, the town did not conduct any surveys regarding a proposed usable bag ordinance. The town did conduct 2 retailer outreach meetings. Both were held in June. We had about, between the 2 retailer outreach meetings and the community meeting, we had about 26 businesses and residents attend those 3 meetings. For the 2 retailer outreach meetings, the majority of the retailers who attended the meetings were in support of the bag ban. A few of them did have some concerns specifically about how to itemize the charge on receipts. A few of our more higher end boutique stores had a concern about the ability to market their businesses using bags. But we did find in our anecdotal conversations with the businesses, several of the businesses already have bags that comply with the provisions in the ordinance, and that they are 40% post-consumer waste. They are 100% recyclable. Some businesses already provide reusable bags, such as bags you can find at retailers, high-end retailer stores like Lululemon or Whole Foods. So for the most part, the businesses were supportive, and once they understood that they wouldn't have to necessarily trade out their stock, several of them were very happy with that outcome. So as I mentioned again, there were a few businesses that did have some concerns. And another concern that the businesses raised for the businesses that would have to trade out their stock, they were concerned about the implementation date and having enough time to go through their current stock before the proposed ordinance went into effect, and they had to order bags that complied with the ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, I see no other questions, so do we have a discussion, motion? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Spector. Personally, it sounds to me like the majority of the people who spoke and wrote letters, plastic is the real culprit, and a ban on plastic bags could be something that should be considered. However, I have an environmental impact report that is very one-sided, so I'm not too sure personally if that's a fair step at this point. I think I'd like to see 2 sides of an argument. I feel like this is being led regionally by lobbyists and some organizations, and I feel like a good amount of the people in Los Gatos may not be aware of what this is, or if they are aware, they've already taken steps on an individual basis to make choices about how they package their groceries and things. So I don't really know where to go on this thing, other than I can say that I think the majority of people are against plastic. I think the majority of people are probably against charging for paper bags. And just knowing from what my family does at home, I can say that 16 million bags in Los Gatos every year is, it's an estimate, and it's a high estimate. And I feel like the data in the report is flawed. So because of that, I can't support the acceptance of this environmental impact report. So that's kind of where I stand with that, and I'm interested in hearing what the other council members have to say.
Further discussion, motion? Ms. Jensen?
I respect Vice Mayor Leonardis greatly, and I respect his opinion on this. However, I think because something is led regionally does not mean that it's a bad idea. I think we had a study session. We have reached out to the community. I think people are accustomed to the plastic bag. rules and regulations. I don't know that we'll lose business in Los Gatos. If you go to Stanford Shopping Center, for example, you pay 10 cents for a bag. If you go to Valley Fair, you pay 10 cents for a bag. I do a lot of free advertising for various businesses by carrying around my bag with their logo on it. So as a business owner, I would imagine that that may be actually a benefit. I think the environmental impact report that Los Gatos agreed to participate in is fairly thorough. I have had information from various organizations. Santa Clara Valley Water District provided information regarding plastics in our waterways. We have a sustainability plan that we adopted in Los Gatos. So I would be uncomfortable as a council member not following through on action items that we voted on to accept and promote in our community, one of them being a plastic bag ban. So I would be interested in what other people's opinions are and what the discussion is. I'm not particularly comfortable going forward with the motion right now unless other people want to weigh in. So, but that's where I am on it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Spector. You know, regarding banning plastic bags, I mean, I can see justification for that. I worked in the grocery business back in the 80s, a long time ago, and one of the worst days of my life as being a bagger, a courtesy clerk, was when the plastic bag apparatus was thrown right down on the table, and this is your new bagging mechanism. And since that time, I've always wondered, why did this thing arrive? You know, why was it invented? I have to believe that there was some cost savings, but we are aware of the environmental impacts. It's just that I'm not sure about this particular report. So perhaps a modified version of what's being proposed in this report would be something that would serve the people of Los Gatos, yet perhaps also take into consideration those who spoke on the environment. And by the way, I was invited to St. Mary's, and I did speak to the class, and I saw them do some of those presentations you saw this evening. So I wanted to disclose that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brzezinski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My wife has a stack of designer reusable bags in the back of the van, and it's just become part of our natural day-to-day activity. There isn't any maintenance that I notice, anyway. So the estimates of the dollar amounts that would cost our family in a year to maintain a collection of bags, to me, is not borne out, at least in our situation, since we're doing anecdotal reports of personal responses. I notice that we are becoming more and more aware of the environmental impacts of the things we do in life. I very much appreciate the fact that our young people are studying and becoming aware and stepping up and saying, look, maybe in your generation, but not mine, we're not going to let this keep happening. And sometimes the kids lead the way. And sometimes we can get really stubborn in our adulthood and think that what was is, what should be. My sense is that we need to move forward. I think the San Mateo County Environmental Report was right on. Okay, no question. To me, as I look at it, as I read it, it's spot on. It's not biased in any particular way. It's not driven by special interests. I think my reading is it's a thoroughgoing, standard environmental report. Now, there are people who have a position that's in opposition. I respect that position. I just say, as I read it, that's not what I see. That it's certainly something that we need to regard. We went to cooperate with San Mateo County because we felt that we did not want to act on our own, to create our own environmental report. And San Mateo stepped up and said, we'll do it, and there are a number of cities in our county, and our town decided to go and to benefit from the San Mateo environmental studies. I think there's a real value to congruence and consistency among the 15 cities and towns of Santa Clara County. And If all 15 get there, I think that's going to be a good thing for us. I think it's going to be beneficial because what you're not going to have is then this kind of confusion. If you're in Valley Fair and you're in the part of Valley Fair that's in San Jose, then you have to pay the money. If you go into the next side of Valley Fair where you're in Santa Clara, they're not there yet. And so it is, it's kind of an odd situation to be in. I think that to move in this direction is the right thing for us. When you look at the language and you really wonder if people have really read this, for example, one of the bullets says, allows retailers to provide protective bags for produce, meat, prescriptions, live fish, and so forth and so on. I wonder if those folks down at the farmers market knew that when the question was asked. And that's kind of the issue I have with anecdotal surveying or surveys. They're not basically scientifically based. 15 people in a room, 10 said no, 4 said yes. We represent 30,000 people here, and that's not a scientific survey. I appreciate the thoughts, but I don't see it as necessarily having a certain value to my analysis of what is being studied at this time. So my issue is this: I think we've got a good environmental report. I think I can support it. I also think that with that environmental report, the way our language is created, it matches or it imitates what that report is asking of us. I think if we deviate from that, then we have to go back and do environmental all over again. And I think that really, if in a perfect world we were looking at education, pretty soon we wouldn't have anybody having to spend any money on paper bags, because we'd all be doing the right thing. We'd all be doing the recyclable bags. That's what we would be doing. Until that time, then there may be the necessity of a little bit of imposed encouragement. But in a few years, if we continue to do that, then I think that we should be in a situation where we're looking at complete responsibility here. Now, the idea of imposed encouragement, I know that's an interesting word for some people, so you write it down. I assume we're going to see it some other time. I hope you see it in context. The context is it's the carriage, it's the carrot that we're trying to achieve. Sometimes we have to encourage people to do the right thing, and I think that's our role as government. So I would be willing to make a motion, and the motion would be to direct the clerk to read the title of the ordinance first, and there's no motion actually required in that.
Introduce an ordinance of the Town of Los Gatos to add a new Article 4 to Chapter 11 to the Town of Los Gatos Municipal Code entitled Single-Use Carry-Out Bags.
And I would move to waive the reading of the ordinance, and there is a motion required. So that's my motion.
We have a motion to waive. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-1, Vice Mayor, no. Mr. Brzezinski?
All right. And I'll move to introduce the ordinance regulating single-use carry-out bags and instruct the clerk to publish a summary of no more than 5 days prior to the adoption. That's my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McNutt.
And Madam Mayor, we didn't have it in the text underneath, but we did in the recommendation above. I wanted to ask if the maker of the motion was including the adoption of the resolution for the CEQA review.
That's correct.
Seconder, Ms. McNutt?
Yes.
All right. Discussion? Well, I'll discuss. As with everything that that comes to this council for decision, and it seems especially so this past year, there are arguments on both sides, if not on many sides, and that's no different with the plastic bag or this ordinance. Let me first of all thank the County of San Mateo for its efforts in spearheading the environmental impact report, and also to commend the prior Los Gatos councils before this immediate one that signed on to use San Mateo County's EIR as a guideline, because it kept us from having to expend the monies as other jurisdictions, for example, San Jose, may have had to do. In studying that environmental impact report, you do get a lot of information, you do get a lot of answers. It is very broad-based, very well done. And it also answers why you're paying money for paper bags, and that's because they also have an environmental impact when they're manufactured. And so where you ultimately want to go is not to have the plastic bags and not to have the paper bags, and to use the designer reusable bags that apparently Mrs. Brzezinski has at her home. Then you have the questions, what's going to happen? And that's always a concern when you're going somewhere in a new direction. But in this instance, we don't have to make it up. We have experience, we have guidance. We have other jurisdictions, other counties, other cities that have taken this route, and they have told us how it works. First of all, we have had, you're right, a lot of emails, a lot of letters, but there are a couple letters that actually got my attention quite a bit. One was from the manager of Safeway, and another one was from the California Grocers Association. And if there's ever any group that is going to, I would think, complain about the kind of ordinance we have before us, it's going to be those two organizations, and they did not. They encouraged us. And why did they encourage us? Because it's working very well for their organizations, and because they want consistency amongst the various jurisdictions. And then lastly, are we doing it for the 5 of us up here, or for those of you in the audience or the watching audience? No, a bit, yes. But we're doing it for the people who are younger than we are, the people who are in school right now, the students from St. Mary's, and people like them who are young people like them who appeared here. It's for our future. Environmental steps are for our future. So if you haven't guessed, and if I haven't already said it, I will be supporting the motion. More discussion. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Spector. My point of view, I also support the idea of sustainability and the environment and keeping the plastic out of our waterways. I do appreciate, of course, the kids coming in because it is their future. And as I disclosed earlier, I was invited to the classroom and answered their questions about this topic. But at the same time, we live in a free market society, and when it's an all or none and you're encouraged to accept it, take it or leave it, I always think that let the people weigh in on it. Don't necessarily, if it's not passing at the state of California level, what is the reason? Maybe it will someday, maybe it won't. But that's where I was more interested in seeing what happens long term. Yes, a regional approach may be good or bad. It would be good in the sense that we do have consistency among jurisdictions, but how do we know how people really feel in our own jurisdiction, which is what I represent? And that's why I am not supporting the motion, because I feel like I do not have enough information from my own jurisdiction to move forward and vote yes on this, despite the fact that there's extensive reports here that are regional, and that's where I'll leave it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, call to question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. Vice Mayor voting no. I think that is the last item on our agenda. It is. Meeting's adjourned.